132. My name is John. With me is Ryan.
Good morning.
And we are here to talk the rise of Skywalker, press, scenario, situation, tour, campaign, whatever that is. That seems like all of a sudden this week really kicked off with a bunch of interviews and some new TV spots. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And we'll talk some Mando too. We have to talk a little bit of Mando because there was a great new episode of that show that came out this weekend, of course, as well. So we'll talk about that too. But you know what, Ryan? We've been kind of like through text messages and things like that. Earlier in the week we were discussing the fact, and actually Kevin brought it up, but we were discussing the fact that like it really feels tame and calm right now as far as the rise of Skywalker goes. And hey, aren't we getting pretty close to this movie coming out? And there hasn't been a lot going on. And then all of a sudden it really did kick in, where at least online and in magazines and websites and stuff. Oh yeah, there is a new Star Wars movie coming out. That happened this week, basically. So, like I said, TV spots and magazine interviews we'll be talking about. So, but you said you wanted to talk a little bit about retail stuff as well before we jump into it.
Yeah. I think we have famously on this podcast been critical of Hasbro distribution of Star Wars merchandise, especially in the previous year. And so I wanted to kind of like talk about at least like the lay of the land where I'm at, because as of right now, I am seeing Star Wars everywhere in every store I go. And as you know, on like my collector side of things, like I am being well fed, and I am spending a lot more money than I was planning on Star Wars figures lately, because every time I go to Target to get cat litter or coffee creamer or whatever, there is a whole ton of new Star Wars stuff every time I go. I don't know if you're seeing that as well.
Well, I just haven't been in the retail stores too much, to be honest. I haven't had the chance really over the last couple of weeks. I did notice that, I think I might have even mentioned it on the show, but a few weeks ago I was at Target and I was pretty impressed with the big like mid-store display that was showing off everything. But then the last time I was at a Target was like on a Friday night with my wife, and we were grabbing a couple things, and I noticed they had taken that down. So that was a bummer. That was being replaced with I'm not sure what, but the Star Wars aisle did look pretty stocked with stuff. Yeah, I mean, they had Galaxy of Adventures toys and at least a couple vintage collection. I mean, from what I've seen, it's still kind of been the issue of the primary, even Black Series, but definitely vintage collection toys is leaning more towards the stuff from last year than the new stuff. But there's like you get quite a few Jyn Ersos, or if not that old, then solo line stuff. But then at least one or two kind of like a new Kylo Ren or new Rey or whatever mixed in there in the Black Series line. And then vintage collection, maybe I would see a new figure here or there mixed in with the vintage collection stuff, but definitely not empty shelves. Plenty of Galaxy of Adventures and plenty of Black Series and vintage collection. Just I'd like to see some of it be a little less old. But then they also have like the Dio robot, or two different Dio robots, Dio droids too. Actually, the cheap one and the expensive one, and there's books and they have all the Blu-rays of the old movies in the Star Wars toy aisle at Target. And yeah, no, it's been pretty good. Like, it's been pretty solid. And Target had the apparel too, like the t-shirts and stuff. That was looking pretty good in the kids section and in that big mid-store section. So I haven't really been to a Walmart or anything, but yeah, I mean, I would definitely not say that, and this is probably maybe better in a lot of people's eyes, but I wouldn't say that it's been the Star Wars annihilates your brain, like you can't buy an orange without having a BB-8 sticker on it, and everything is like every Ziploc bag and paper towel roll and whatever in the store is all Star Wars, which I kind of like that, but I can also see where people don't, and it's overexposure. So But yeah, no, I've seen it's not a ghost town in the toy shelves, so that is good.
Yeah, and I think like we always talk about like our stores, not putting like when there's droughts, like there we always talk about how like our stores not putting product out. Do they not have product to put out, or is stuff just selling out? And I think the case right now is stuff is selling out. Like I will go to a store one day and see like a couple Jana and Wedge Antilles Black Series figures and stuff on the shelf, and then next time I go, they're gone. And I think vintage collection is going even faster. Those, I mean, I see very briefly, and like what usually I just see stuff that I, already have at this point, but then like it's there one day, gone the next. Walmart had the Walmart near me had a huge display, like one of those between the aisles type displays, and it was like a celebration of the saga. It was like a Skywalker saga display, so they had like posters for the first 8 movies and like t-shirts and plushes, pajama pants and all that stuff in there. But then they also had the, I think, Walmart exclusive Yavin Ceremony Luke, and or no, it was Jedi Knight Luke. Yeah, Jedi Knight Luke. Yeah. And then the Spirit Yoda, they had those, and and like some new vintage collection stuff thrown in there. And then, but like the most wild thing was I went to a local grocery store, which is called King Supers. It is a Kroger, an arm of Kroger. And
I feel like it sounds like a New Japan wrestler persona or something.
But they had in their holiday aisle, they had like a toys section, and they had something I've seen a lot where it's like half of the toys are Star Wars, half of them are Frozen 2, which I don't know. I don't love some of the gendering around that, but that's a whole nother issue. But so I'm there, and they have some like pretty like weird Star Wars stuff in there, and then all of a sudden, like I look over and they have just like this row in this display of Black Series figures, and the first one in the row is the Battle Droid, which I had like never even seen in a store before. And so like I start scrolling through them, and there's some of the new ones like Rey and Dio and stuff, and I found a Mace Windu, which is one that I didn't have. And so I got a nice Black Series Mace Windu while I was getting groceries, which was kind of a one of those, well, it's Star Wars season experiences.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we don't have Kroger around here anymore, but I see in collecting groups and hear on podcasts and stuff about how Kroger is one of those grocery store chains that often has the Star Wars toys and stuff, and they have good deals on them and big sales and stuff. And so that always bums me out that we don't have Kroger anymore because, it doesn't bum me out that much because I didn't really like it, but we have Schnucks instead, and I really hate Schnucks. So, yeah, Schnucks bought all the Krogers and every other kind of grocery store almost in Rockford, so it's gross.
But you have Woodman's at least.
We have Woodman's, yeah, so we do that. That's better. And we have Meyer too, which I like better, and I like everything better than Schnucks. I really, really hate Schnucks. But anyway, I would say the online presence is good too. Like I was checking Amazon yesterday, and you can get pretty much any vintage collection figure from the new wave on Amazon at retail price. Which, in the past, a lot of times, the chase figures are the ones that were not as readily available, then would only be available from resellers because they were sold out on Amazon and they were like then at a inflated price. And that was the case like with a couple, we talked about that on the show too, with a couple figures like the week after they came out. But now it seems like if not all of them, then almost all of them are back to kind of standard price. I don't know what the deal is with a Mandalorian Black Series because that's the one I've never seen in the store again, I don't think, since Triple Force Friday.
Yeah, those are selling for above retail.
Yeah, that makes sense because I mean, like, there's very little Mando merchandise, and the show is obviously really, I think, taking off, and people are very impressed with it. So, yeah, they need to do a little better job with Mando merch, I think.
Yeah.
Although
related to that, we are seeing the first trickles of Baby Yoda merch, or the child merch. That's they're saying, Lucasfilm is saying there will be plenty by Christmas. But from the first thing I saw was the Hot Topic stuff. Did you see that?
I don't know. I read an article on CNBC or something, which maybe I'll try to link to in the notes here, but it was like all T-shirts, basically.
Yeah.
And the headline was like, "Oh, baby merch, Baby Yoda merch, even out by Friday or whatever,"
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, maybe not actually, because
Yeah.
it's just T-shirts and stuff. But I mean, which is great. But the headline made it seem like, oh, they've had these toys under wraps, they kept them secret, and now they're going to be ready to go. And it's like, it's actually more just like T-shirts and stuff. Which, real quick, as we're talking about this too. 2 weeks ago, I would have been really hesitant to just like bring up Baby Yoda merch in the middle of the show because of like people in the UK and Eastern Europe and stuff who can't watch the show. But the internet decided, and actually the official Star Wars channels and sources, and everyone decided, but we're not going to try to keep that secret anymore. Which, I mean, how could you keep it a secret, I guess, at a certain point? That being said, there were definitely some people who didn't bother trying even in the slightest to not spoil that like right away. So I thought that was kind of a bummer. But the unfortunate truth is just that Baby Yoda is, I mean, it's not an unfortunate truth. It's cool. But Baby Yoda is a cultural phenomenon. So you really can't not know about it if you didn't get to see the show yet. So it sucks. But anyway, Baby Yoda's the thing.
And also everyone's just calling it Baby Yoda. And I don't love that. Because it's wrong, but like,
well, what else can you call it?
Yeah, if I called it the being or the child, like,
or the
even,
asset,
yeah, even like Star Wars fans who watch the show would be like, wait, what? Oh, yeah. So we're just gonna, I guess, for now, we'll just agree to call it Baby Yoda on the show because that's what I mean. Yeah. I don't like it. I just want to throw that out there. I don't like it.
Okay. But I mean, if Star Wars has spent 40 plus years not telling you what a Yoda is, then what else are you going to call a baby of that species,
I'm going to call it like a child.
That's on them, bro.
Yeah. Also, yeah, I think we'll have Mando's episode 3 spoilers at the end of the episode. Yeah. But we won't spoil anything during, even though, like, God, like, you kind of can't avoid anything at this point. I woke up to go to the bathroom and blow my nose Thursday night at like 1:30 in the morning, and 1:30 in the morning, or I guess it was Friday morning, and like I was just draining my sinuses, hanging out, and I checked. I just like instinctively, I was using my phone as a flashlight. I instinctively went on Twitter. People were just openly talking about Mandalorian episode 3 on there. And I'm just like, it's
probably been live for like 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
No.
And I was like,
and the thing is with, every week I get up, and I think you do the same. I know you do the same. We get up like a little bit early on Friday morning so we can watch the episode before we start, our morning routine or during our morning routine or whatever. But the point is we get up early to watch the show. Like all 3 weeks or all 3 episodes, I've been like, oh my God, that episode was so awesome. There was so much awesome stuff in it. And then I don't really talk about it on Twitter because I'm like, I don't want to. I know that most of the world's not getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to watch this episode. So I'll just maybe post like one cryptic tweet being like, man, that was awesome or whatever, but I can't really understand the mentality of like, I just saw a thing, so I will now start like openly discussing it on Twitter, even though I know 95% of the audience hasn't seen it yet.
Yeah, I also think like, you say post a cryptic tweet. I think a lot of people think they're doing that, which is kind of like the worst kind of spoiler when they're like, I'm not saying what it is, but like, you can infer pretty quickly most of the time.
Yes. Well, I think what I tweeted on Friday morning after watching episode 3, which we really should just be talking about this later in the show, but I think what I tweeted was it was an emotional roller coaster. And I did think about it beforehand. I was like, are people going to know based on that maybe like, there's some emotional stuff going on between the Mando and the baby or whatever, but it's like, yeah, well, you kind of figure, I mean, that's pretty vague, I think, so I could have been like, oh, there's a really exciting moment at the end when you think things are going to be really bad, and then, wait, we're not talking about the episode yet. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm doing it now on the show.
Yeah.
Let's move on. We got to move on.
Generally speaking, if you're thinking about posting something that you think is cryptic, remember that Star Wars fans are insane and can read super deeply into anything and usually figure it out.
Well, I'm gonna go back to my tweets now and see, because I think they've all been cryptic enough, but we'll see. I do.
Okay.
I think our Twitter account is clean as far as this scandal goes.
Sure.
All right. Anything else on merch, or should we jump into the Rise of Skywalker?
No, let's jump in.
We didn't talk about the Infantry Mandalorian, which is available at Best Buy. I just realized for pre-order. I think it actually comes out December 16th.
Yeah, it's pre-order link is up now.
Yeah, but I was like looking around on the site trying to figure out like, because I was kind of getting the itch. I was like, do I want to buy this right now? But I didn't, because it's $30. But do I want to buy this right now? And so I was trying to figure out like, well, when would I get it? And I think it's December 16th. So that's 3 weeks, a little over 3 weeks, I think. So that's not too bad. That's pretty cool to announce. And have it ready.
That's a pretty quick turnaround, and it's cool. They mostly kept it under wraps. I think like Yakface had like decoded the UPC at like some point, and
yes,
so
they do.
Like we knew something along those lines was coming, like another Mando figure, but we didn't know exactly who it was, and that it was that character from the show. Which
I noticed on the Best Buy site too when I was looking that up. They have a lot of their figures on sale right now. Like the vintage collection figures are $9.99 instead of $12.99, and a lot of their Black Series figures, including IG-11, are $14.99 or $14.99.
Yeah,
so that's pretty cool. The problem with the website is though that they don't have them listed as individual figures, so you really can't order them online that way.
Yeah, like
it's like
order
they
and
vary.
You'll get a random one of these 6 figures, which is horrible and ridiculous.
But the line, anyways, does show up as available in store for in-store pickup or whatever. So I think you could go to the store and try to find the figures you're looking for, and especially with the Black Series, like to save $5 per figure is a pretty good deal. So
I grabbed
I could
the IG-11 last weekend, and then yesterday when I was at Target, I got the C-3PO with Bandolier and Baba Frick.
See, I didn't even know that stuff was out yet.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, they're keeping me fed. I literally just went for coffee creamer. And then I also got the Dagobah Cave 3-pack.
Yeah, with the Spirit Yoda,
which is insanely overpriced. But
I'm surprised you got that, because you were mad about it when they announced it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can be mad about things and still support them with my wallet so that they continue to happen and I continue to be mad. No, that was during whatever Hasbro panel we were watching where they just like kept announcing original trilogy stuff, and we were like, we just want to see Rise of Skywalker and Mandalorian stuff. Why are you just showing us OT stuff? Which is why I was mad. But like, I love the Dagobah scene, the cave and everything. So I bought that, but there was a 25% off one toy coupon at Target, so I got 10
So you bought
bucks.
Poe's X-Wing?
No. I haven't bought any of those pricey things. I've been I look at the helmets every time I'm at a store. I look at the Poe's X-Wing every time. I look at the ATST, the Mando one at Best Buy, which is like beautiful, and it's crazy. Like, that toy's been out for a few weeks now, and we still haven't seen it on the show.
Yeah, that's true.
That's wild.
Yeah, that's true.
But
so we really should move on to Rise of Skywalker. But just quickly, I'll say that Elliot, my 6-year-old, is my 10-year-old is loving it too. But Elliot, my 6-year-old, is really loving The Mandalorian. And man, especially after we watched the second episode, he was all hyped up and he was running around the house and he kept talking about how he wanted a Mandalorian toy. I want a Mandalorian toy. And I was like, well, you can play with my Black Series one, And he's like, but I want one that's like the smaller size. Like he's never played with Black Series toys, And I was like, well, cool. I will talk to you in April of 2020 because that's when the Mandalorian Vintage Collection figure comes out. So it's a little bit of a bummer. And it's kind of weird, too, that they have this Vintage Collection, vehicle for the Mandalorian now, but they don't have a Mandalorian Vintage Collection figure until April. So, but, there's a lot going on, I guess, in the toy world as far as Star Wars toys go. So it is what it is. But I just thought going into The Mandalorian, this is going to be more of a mature, like, cool guy Star Wars show, and it's not going to be so much for kids. And it has turned out to have quite a bit more heart. And
there's that word again.
Yes, I know. Yep, I'm into it. No, but it's been more. It's had more of that Star Wars kind of positivity and lightheartedness, and it's been a little more joyful than I expected it to be, even while still being kind of dark and brooding and serious at times. Yeah,
well, I also thought like this. I think a lot of us thought this was going to be like the dude bro Star Wars show. Yeah. Like, we were talking about like how masculine the trailers were, and like, oh, this is going to be the Star Wars show for all the OT dude bros who are mad about like women in Star Wars and Last Jedi and stuff. Like, it's going to be the show for them. And then it turns out like it has this really broad appeal. And it's also like, creative team wise, like one of the most diverse Star Wars things, and it's also like one of the most risky Star Wars things that is set in the OT, but end of OT, but also like is not like as doesn't ape it as much as even something like Force Awakens. So it's so, like, original, too. And it, like, really bucks a ton of the conventions from the OT.
So many times I've wanted to move this conversation to The Rise of Skywalker, and now so many ways that I just can't do it because I texted you guys. I wish that I had the tweet in front of me, but somebody had tweeted out what I thought was a fantastic point, and you just kind of brought it to mind there. Which is that The Force Awakens takes, and I know you weren't doing this in this moment, but The Force Awakens takes so much crap for being like referential to Star Wars. Mm-hmm. And like The Mandalorian, every episode so far has been like just a treasure trove of like, remember this thing from the original trilogy? Remember this thing? Remember this thing? Remember this thing? Remember this thing? I mean, like everything, like visually speaking. Maybe it's because it has been. It's just like tons of references. Like whenever they can use something that was already in the original trilogy, they use it in this show, and like nobody cares. And I don't care. I love it. I think it's fine. I think it's great. But it's just funny how, I think because The Force Awakens was the first thing out of the gate, and I guess maybe too because the story structure is in some ways more similar to the old movies than The Mandalorian is. But yeah, like nobody seems to mind the lack of original, kind of paraphernalia and stuff in The Mandalorian, but in fact, it's almost like a selling point. Like, oh, did you see that item? Did you see that character? Whatever. And then, like, in, The Force Awakens, it was
people
bland
loved,
and vanilla and boring.
Yeah, but people loved all that in Solo, too, and didn't complain. Because Solo is, like, another thing with, like, a bajillion Easter eggs.
Yeah, but it had an audience like the 10th of the size of The Force Awakens. So
yeah, that's
didn't
true.
have as many people.
And I think we're kind of talking about two different things. Like we're, like no doubt, Mando is like ridiculous with the imagery and like, hey, remember that thing? But it doesn't do it in an obnoxious way. Things just exist, and there's not really like a zinger of a line every time something is like referenced. But I think where like I was saying, like it's so unconventional, Star Wars is in like the pacing, the aesthetic, the characterization, the obviously the music, the type of story it's telling. Like I guess this is a hero's journey, maybe, but it's certainly not following exactly that like Campbell's structure, in the same way. So, like,
yeah, no, it's very it is very different. It is very different, but it's just one of those things where like I've not seen one person say there's too many references or there's too much homage in The Mandalorian, and maybe that's because there's not, and that's great. But I just saw that, there's so much of that in reference to The Force Awakens. So
yeah,
but
and
yeah, they are.
We'll get
different,
into some of like the more egregious references that popped out in episode 3 when we get to that part of the show.
Now you say we will, but I don't know that we'll ever get there because like we just can't get into the main topic. So let's try now.
Yeah. Well, I think this is also like this is telling right now where we kind of just want to talk about The Mandalorian.
No. Perfect transition.
But
we're in disagreement on that, which is fine. But we're in disagreement because every week on Friday or whatever, it's been 2 weeks on Friday, I guess. But since The Mandalorian came out, every time there's a new Mandalorian episode, our little, Star Wars boys, like text thread that we have going on where we're texting each other all the time, our thoughts on Star Wars and stuff, like, we have been lighting that thing up, like so excited about all the Mandalorian stuff. Everybody likes it, which is rare, very rare, as you pointed out in there, like super, it's kind of impossible lately, but we all like it. And everybody's really excited about it and having a good time with it. And Dan in there, I think it was Dan specifically, who was like, yeah, this is like what I'm really hyped about right now. And like The Rise of Skywalker, he's excited for it, he said, but it's kind of like not at the forefront of his mind. And for me, like anytime there's the smallest little Rise of Skywalker anything, it kind of puts The Mandalorian in perspective for me, because while I'm loving the show like a ton, I really love the show, like it is not for me like the same like kind of excitement level as episode 9 is, which is not like a negative thing at all. It's fine. It doesn't need to be. It's like they're totally different things. But like for me, I think what I'll always be most excited about is like the big Star Wars. In the same way I wasn't as excited for Solo or Rogue One even as I was for like Last Jedi or Force Awakens or Rises. I mean, it's just a different thing for me, So, but I do see, some people are feeling that way. Like The Mandalorian is the thing I'm really excited about. That's what I really want to talk about, or that's what I'm really pumped for week to week, or just in general. I mean, there was a lot of talk about that over the summer. People saying like, hey, Rise of Skywalker's coming out in December, but like I'm even more excited for The Mandalorian and that kind of thing, which, if that's your take, that's great. That is totally valid. But for me, it's just like I get so pumped up about The Mandalorian, which is great. Like I'm loving it. But then I'll see like, oh, there's 4 seconds of new Rise of Skywalker footage in this new TV spot, and I'm like, I forget the Mando exists almost, So that's hyperbolic. It's not. That's extreme. But like I definitely am more excited even for the littlest tidbit about the Rise of Skywalker than I am for like almost like a new Mandalorian episode.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably feel different. I mean, I know I'll feel different when I'm like sitting down in the theater about to watch Rise of Skywalker, but like right now it's like, man, like I can't, like my Star Wars brain capacity is like, okay, well here's the Knights of Ren standing on a rock, but also we have like this insane episode of The Mandalorian to like unpack. So I don't know. I'm in full Mando mode right now, but obviously
that'll change.
That'll change. I need to get. I have Resistance Reborn and Force Collector sitting here. I haven't started those. I think once I like really commit to getting ready for Rise of Skywalker and I start like reading those prelude books, I think that will help transition me into the zone.
Sure.
But
I read Resistance Reborn. It was very good. I need to order Force Collector. I haven't gotten that yet, but I think that'll be a quicker read, so I should probably be able to knock that out fairly easily before the movie gets here. But the movie is going to get here soon, and as a result, the press season is like really in full gear. Just this last week, it started to kick off. So let's talk about these two TV spots quickly. One called The End, one called Fate. They're both up on the Star Wars YouTube channel, which is great. But they both kind of came out on Twitter first in 4:3 cropped versions there. So especially with The End, which is the first one that came out, like I watched it like 25 times on my phone on Twitter. And then like 8 hours later or something, the widescreen version came out on YouTube, and it was like, oh my God, there's so much more that I'm not even seeing in this Twitter version. So I'm just glad they're putting those up on YouTube for sure. But yeah, there's two new TV spots. The End is one, and Fate is the other. And we don't need to like get into them super hardcore. I know some people are like not even wanting to watch the TV spots because they just don't want to. You're watching them.
I'm watching them one time, and that's it.
Okay.
And then I'm not rewatching them. I'm not, breaking them down frame by frame, which I don't need to because Twitter does that for me.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm watching them one time because I know the images will show up on my Twitter feed. So I'd rather just have the context, rather than like totally avoid them. Because basically, if you want to avoid episode 9 right now, like you have to avoid culture in society, which is pretty impossible. So like I'm watching them one time and that's it.
Cool. Okay. Well, yeah, if you don't want to know what's in them and you're able to avoid culture, as Ryan says, otherwise, then, we'll have chapter marks in the episode if you're listening through a podcast app. Otherwise, I don't know. Yeah, you can skip ahead. So, but let's just talk about a couple cool shots that are in them because you've seen them. And yeah. Okay. So first one that stands out to me in The End TV spot, which I love, is Rey jumping to the Falcon from a Star Destroyer hangar. And we saw like part of this shot in one of the earlier teasers where Kylo looks like he's being blown back and there's this blue light on him and stuff.
Yeah.
And, I anyways was like, oh, what if it's the Emperor using some blue force like ghost thing to push him back? Turns out it's just the Millennium Falcon like trying to get away from the Star Destroyer or something. I don't know. I think it's the engine of the Millennium Falcon that's creating that blue light. But yeah, Rey is jumping away. And it's really cool in the widescreen version. You can see Finn on the ramp of the Falcon, like with his hand out. So she's like trying to jump to, and he's going to like pull her onto the Falcon. So, I know there's been a little bit online of people being like, well, what the heck? They're in space. How can they do whatever? And like, if you look closely, Finn has some goofy mask on like they had in the
let's
asteroid.
not start like the gravity bomb space.
Oh, no. We're not going to debate all that stuff. I'm just saying like it's funny to me that he's got like the little mask on because it's like, well, yeah, I'm in the vacuum of space apparently, like on the ramp of the Millennium Falcon, but I have this mask on, and it's just a very Star Wars thing, Star Wars has always had that kind of stuff. So, I think it's fun, but it's just a cool, like epic kind of exciting shot, so that's cool. The next one that really jumped out to me was Rey and Kylo on Kijimi, I think, is what it looks like. Which we're just seeing a little more of that snowy, kind of environment, which looks really cool. It's got like the kind of cobblestone brickwork kind of look to it, but covered in snow, which is kind of a cool, different kind of look for a Star Wars planet. And it's at night, so that's looking pretty epic as well.
Mm-hmm.
Don't really know what's going on between Rey and Kylo there, but they both have their lightsabers drawn, and but you don't really see Kylo there, but you see the back of him or whatever. So, cool shot. The Knights of Ren group shot is awesome. You mentioned that earlier. They're like up on some plateau type, mountain type thing or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like a helicopter shot. So hopefully Chris won't get too mad about that because he didn't like the helicopter shot at the end of Force Awakens. But it's a helicopter shot kind of panning around them. And that looks really cool, I think. And it's just like nice action glamour shot. Not action, but a nice glamour shot of all the Knights of
glamorous.
All the Knights of Ren in broad daylight. So I think that's cool.
Two things. First, I think Chris's complaint about Force Awakens is the only complaint I will acknowledge and listen to. It's my favorite complaint about Force Awakens. It's the only one I will give time of day. But I like the helicopter shot at the end, but I also like people being mad about the helicopter shot.
Well, and we should point out that Chris's profession is that he is a director of photography and camera operator and all that stuff. So it's like we're a couple of dudes hanging out in our bedrooms talking about Star Wars on Skype, and then Chris is a dude who actually films movies and television shows as a living, for a living. So, and that doesn't mean his opinion is the only one that's valid or whatever, but it's just funny. It's like if we were talking about education right now, policy, and we had an opinion on it, and then somebody who doesn't work in education was talking about it. It's like, it's just two different perspectives, I guess is my point. Everybody sends their kids to school. Everybody's involved in education in some level, but then you have people that work in education, and they would definitely have a different perspective on things. And we all watch movies, we can all criticize or evaluate movies and stuff, but it's just Chris is somebody who's got that background, but so does J.J. Abrams, who made the movie. You know what I mean? So he also he also knows how films work. So they both get to have a say, as do we. But anyway.
Yeah. So before I even saw this trailer, the first thing I saw on Twitter was tweets with this picture and various 90s boy band lyrics in the tweet, which was
That's
pretty
good.
great. That made me
I
very
didn't see
happy.
those are good. That's good.
Yeah, and I know we're both very pro 90s boy bands.
Oh yeah.
On this show, so that's the kind of Star Wars content that we definitely support.
It's a bummer, though. My 90s boy band whale that got away, my white whale, is seeing the Backstreet Boys perform, because I saw 98 Degrees. I saw NSYNC on the No Strings Attached tour, pretty good. So I've seen, I've been to some boy band shows, but I never got to see the Backstreet Boys, so we'll see someday. Seen Boys to Men.
Don't they have
not a boy
don't
band.
They have a cruise? Is there a Backstreet Boys cruise?
Yeah, they have stuff going on. They do have stuff going on, yeah. Yeah, they had a
the way
great
to
new
see them,
single.
I think.
They had a great new single last year, which me and my kids loved. But also, there's some allegations about certain Backstreet Boys too, which makes me feel a little less excited about supporting them necessarily. But I don't remember what the deal is. They're more recent allegations though. So
okay.
Time traveling back to enjoying the Backstreet Boys in the late 90s, I think they don't necessarily factor into that. But it took a weird turn. Let's talk other things from the TV spots. Knights of Ren.
Yeah.
Did you finish your boy band lyrics? They look cool. Glamour shot. Was there something else on that?
No, that was literally it. I like that.
What is your favorite boy band though? Before we move on.
NSYNC.
NSYNC. Okay, I was more of a Backstreet Boy guy, but
Okay.
yeah. All right. Rocket Troopers. That was cool because we see a little more of the like. What do you call that? The tread something. The tread speeders.
Yeah, the tank bike.
Yeah, I thought that was cool that you saw like the tank tank bike thing and the stormtroopers on it.
Cyber bike.
No, the Cybertruck. And then in the one shot, the rocket trooper like takes off of the back of the other stormtrooper and flies, off of the tread speeder thing.
Yeah.
Thought that was cool.
Real quick, like when everyone was like mocking the Cybertruck the other day, did you? I don't know if it was just me, but like I immediately got like a really strong desire to watch the first two Terminator movies and RoboCop. Did you feel that at all?
No.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
RoboCop is a good movie, but it's a little too nihilistic and dark for me, so that's like not my favorite.
The unrated version.
Any version. Yeah,
so
Paul
good.
Verhoeven is not
So good.
necessarily my thing.
Okay, it's but the aesthetically, it's got like that same kind of vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
As
that
the
it's like,
Cybertruck.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that thing looks real dumb, but I was shocked that it's only $40,000 though. I was like, well, that's not so bad actually.
Well, that's what happens when you don't give your workers any rights and union block them. You can.
Yeah. Yes, but like they've been doing that all along, and all their cars are like usually their stuff is like really expensive. You know what I mean? So.
Well, the windows don't work. They break easily.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about easily. They're supposed to be unbreakable, and it is possible to break them. I don't know if that means they don't work. Also, I'm not a proponent really of Tesla specifically, so yeah, it's okay. I don't need to defend like Elon Musk, who is an odd duck, or Tesla, the company, which is mainly cars for like super rich people. But that's what I'm saying. Like, lots of people spend $40,000 on a truck, or at least like $35,000 on a truck. So like, I was shocked that it was $40,000. That's all I'm saying, because I figured, if a truck is $30,000, then a Tesla
Cybertruck
is $60,000.
Is going to be 60. Yeah, because it's from the future.
For a lot of people, it's affordable. The most expensive car I've ever bought is $11,900. But for a lot of people, they could probably afford a Cybertruck, and the thing is, then you're not paying for gas, and it's cool. I'm gonna get a Nissan Leaf. Let's talk about the Sith Troopers. You see the Sith Troopers in action.
As well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is really cool. Actually, it's not that cool because you just see them like for a
They're
second.
just red stormtroopers.
Yeah.
I mean,
I saw the Empire magazine had like, exclusive new photos of the Sith Trooper, or photo of the Sith Troopers. And I saw it, and it was like a pretty close-up shot of them standing there, and I was like, I know what they look like. You can buy a toy and examine them from all angles. So. Yeah. But I will say that like both of these TV spots, the End and the Fate TV spot, is like mostly made up of footage that we've seen from the other, the most recent trailer, the full trailer. But like what they always do with the TV spots, which I love, is they sprinkle in some new shots that you haven't seen before, and like I love soaking that stuff up, especially because for the most part it's stuff from the sequences you've already seen in the trailer. So like, I've already seen like footage of the stormtroopers on the tread speeder things chasing Finn and Rey and Poe and whoever on Pisana, and so to see one more shot of the rocket trooper like lifting off the back of the tread speeder, it doesn't really tell me anything I didn't know about the movie yet, but it's just a little bit of just something else to get me kind of hyped. Or I love the way that they use for these TV spots, they'll take like the lines and stuff that are already in the trailer that's out, but just recontextualizing them a little bit, like Luke's line from the trailer that's in these, and just the way they recontextualize them or just reuse them, just kind of, gets me hyped. Like 3PO at the beginning of the End TV spot, he's got the line where he's, Poe asks him, what are you doing, 3PO? But before that, he says, like, I think all we've done, all we've seen, or something like that. And it's just like, just gives a little more of that epic, like, oh my God, this is 40 years in the making, and it's closing it up. So I get excited about that. I'm looking forward to there being like 10 more TV spots before The Rise of Skywalker comes out. So
yeah. And I guess for those of us who are like just like, I don't want to see any more of the movie until I see the movie. Even like, it's not really even like spoilers for me. It's just like, I don't want to see any more of the movie until I see the movie kind of thing. But according to J.J. Abrams, those trailers are only scratching the surface of what the movie is.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I think there's going to be so much more of the movie that you haven't seen yet, that, again, like, I don't think that they're going to be bringing in lots of new stuff in these new ideas. It's going to be mostly different angles on stuff we've already seen. So to me, that's why. And basically, I'm like, if it's going to be on TV anyways, I mean, I watch not a lot of TV, but I watch enough TV that, like, I see the commercial for Rise of Skywalker, like, on TV when I'm watching wrestling or something anyway. It'll pop up on TV or, before YouTube videos or whatever. So, I mean, I might as well just watch it because, like, it's going to be hard to avoid if you wanted to. Yeah. And I don't. But here's the deal, Ryan. Let's talk about this as we're discussing what we want to see or what we don't. We just saw yesterday, and this came to me via Slimo, so thanks to her for always kind of keeping people aware of what's going on in that kind of stuff, Star Wars Press and that sort of thing. Good Morning America this week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, is going to be featuring, I think, for sure tomorrow, Monday, although it'll probably be yesterday by the time this episode comes up, but Monday, the 25th, I believe, is going to feature J.J. Abrams, and then Daisy Ridley's going to be on Tuesday, and John Boyega Wednesday, or maybe it's the opposite of that. But the point is, J.J., John Boyega, Daisy Ridley, one each day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Good Morning America this week. So that's fun because those interviews probably have, quite a bit of fluff, but there'll be a nugget or two that'll be cool there. And just as fans of all those people, it'll be fun to see them on TV. But allegedly, apparently, they're going to be debuting a scene from The Rise of Skywalker on Good Morning America this week. I assume on Monday with JJ.
Yeah.
That's wild. And so, as somebody who's like, I don't really want to see any more new shots in TV spots, like, what do you do when the scene from The Rise of Skywalker debuts on Good Morning America? You watch it, right?
You just watch it. Yeah.
Okay.
You're going to watch that scene.
Yeah, right. And by scene, I'm sure it's like 30 seconds, but still, I mean, that should be cool. With The Force Awakens, the scene that they chose to kind of show on TV before the movie came out was
Finn and Rey on Jakku, wasn't it?
Finn and Rey on Jakku, yep. Yeah. Running to, we didn't know at the time, but running to the Falcon. And, they hid that. Of course, they're not going to reveal that on TV. But it was pretty cool. It was an exciting scene. And, we're not going to make it. We might if we make it to that quad jumper. That was exciting. Yeah. So it was mostly action and whatever. But I assume we'll get something like that. I would guess right now maybe a little bit of the Pisana chase sequence, that would make a lot of sense.
Could be. Yeah.
But anyway, we'll get something on Good Morning America this week. And to me, that's exciting because, I'm sure we'll get, that might be the only scene we see, or maybe we'll see like a little something on like a late night show, a little clip to, I mean, that is standard practice, I think, for movies. Like when you have the cast coming out and being interviewed and stuff, they'll show like a little clip from the movie, 30 seconds or something. So we might get one or two more, I guess, in the process. But it's just all of this stuff to me is a we're getting close kind of thing, like I know we're getting close when this stuff is happening. So
yeah, I think it will be a Knights of Ren action scene.
Oh, that would be awesome. That would be really cool.
Because I have a feeling Knights of Ren are going to look really cool, which they do. They're not going to be very important to the story, is my gut feeling. And so, like, I think, like, that would be the kind of thing where you're like, hey, check out what's in this movie. We got, like, 6 Casey Joneses right here.
You know where I could see them being a little more important, though, is if the inevitable, or almost inevitable, Kylo Ren babyface turn occurs in this movie. I could see them being a part of it because you need, if he's going to go good, you need something bad for him to fight against, and his own brothers in the Knights of Ren would be a pretty good adversary for him there. So
and I mean we've talked multiple times about the villain vacuum in the sequel trilogy. We talked about it at the end of Force Awakens.
Yeah.
We talked about it at the end of, Last Jedi after Snoke was killed in like the middle of the movie. And I think I think the vacuum is pretty filled by Palpatine. That's, kind of all the villain you need, but like he's gonna have like henchmen. Because I don't think he's going to be controlling Kylo Ren in the same way he controlled Darth Vader.
I don't know that Kylo Ren will even be working for Palpatine, to be honest. Yeah. But that being said, like we can't debate this right now. We don't need to debate it. It's okay.
Why? Why?
No, we're not going to. But I'm just saying, like,
why would I bring this up?
I'm just saying, like, you say villain vacuum, and I'm like, I think Kylo Ren's a pretty strong villain. I don't think there's a vacuum. I mean, I understand what you're saying because we had that point, and you know that I like to get like all pedantic with word choice and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But like, the reason I'm even like, discussing it is that I think Kylo Ren will be a pretty strong villain in this movie until he's not. So like
right. And
yeah, but I'm saying like I think 80% of the movie, you're going to see Kylo Ren like running around like slicing dudes up, being evil. Like I think he's going to be a strong villain, and I think that, and I also think he's going to be redeemed or turn good or whatever at the end of the movie. So I'm not saying that he's not, but I think he'll be pretty intense. He'll be a pretty good villain. So, we're going to get Palpatine, but I think that his role will not be. Like, turns out Palpatine's actually the villain in The Rise of Skywalker and not Kylo Ren. I think Kylo Ren will be also, and then it'll be like a third act thing with Palpatine, but remains to be seen. I could be wrong. Yeah. But I really like Kylo Ren, but I really like Kylo Ren as a villain, and I think he's a good villain too. He's not just a good, like, conflicted, like, emo guy. I think he's also a good villain, so.
I think so too.
All right, cool. We're going to maybe just go through some of these quotes and stuff quickly, but there's some great interviews this week, and little profiles. The first one, Entertainment Weekly, Inside the Rise of Skywalker. It's a zoomed out overview of the process of making the movie and what the movie is, and we all know what the movie is, but there's some great stuff from JJ in there. One thing is he says he's feeling infinitely better about The Rise of Skywalker right now than he was about The Force Awakens at the same stage in the process. Which is good to hear. Makes sense because like when he was at this stage in the process with The Force Awakens, he'd never released a successful Star Wars movie, and now he has. So you'd think you'd have more confidence as far as that goes. But yeah, he's just talking about how much better he feels about The Rise of Skywalker, and then also how much more ambitious The Rise of Skywalker is than The Force Awakens. So those are both good things to hear, I think. No?
No, I'm glad JJ's feeling good about it. Like, I don't know. Cool. I mean, I also don't think he'd be like, guys, let me be real with you. This film is a disaster.
No, of course he wouldn't say that. But like for me, The Force Awakens is so awesome. So to hear that he's looking at the new movie he's making and saying, what we did with Force Awakens was pretty cool, but this is way better. That's exciting to me. So
yeah. Is that what he's saying?
Well, okay, no. He's feeling infinitely better. You're right.
Okay.
But then when he says it's ambitious, like way more ambitious,
that's what I like. That's what I like to hear.
That's suggesting
we got some of this a few weeks ago where he's like, "Yeah, I'm taking risks with this movie that I would have never dreamed of taking with Force Awakens." It's like, yes,
yeah,
that's what we need to move. To keep the series going forward and to like show us something new, like just in general. Yeah.
For sure. Also, I cut out this little section where Abrams or John Boyega is talking about how JJ kind of wanted the cast to feel free to improvise dialogue, and that many shots were done using long continuous takes to keep their flow going. He said, John Boyega said JJ came back with a new energy and a new vibe. He wanted dialogue to be messy and natural. That got us all really excited. And then Oscar Isaac adds that it really captures the spirit of the original trilogy. So I know some people probably don't like that kind of comment, like, oh, it's trying to capture the spirit of the original trilogy or whatever. But I think, like, in this specific context, what it's saying is, like, hey, there's that camaraderie, especially in A New Hope. Like, to me, that's almost the thing that defines A New Hope, is, like, the camaraderie and the chemistry between, you know, Mark, Carey, and Harrison. And so to hear that, like, that's something they're really trying to, like, kind of capture in The Rise of Skywalker is exciting, especially because, by their own admission, like, those three characters have not really been together in this trilogy. And JJ's been talking for a while about, like, this is the one where I wanted to put Oscar, Daisy, and John together and have them be on an adventure together for a chunk of the movie, a significant chunk of the movie. So to hear that that's going to happen, and those are all three, like, great characters, and to hear that hopefully, you know, it's being done in a way that's going to emphasize the chemistry that they have with one another, that should be really fun.
Yeah.
Rey, Oscar Isaac at the end of that quote said, on top of that, there's the fact that Rey has, and then stops himself. And then Daisy says, Rey is driving her own thing. She's not what other people are telling her to do. And she goes on to say, I have skills that have developed, but confident isn't a word I'd use to describe it. She's definitely more control of everything and can do new fun stuff, but she's vulnerable and a little insecure about it all. I think with the comics that have come out, and even Resistance Reborn a little bit, and just sort of some of the pre-Rise of Skywalker stuff that's been going on, people have been wondering, like, what is Rey's kind of state going to be? Is she going to be losing her connection to the Force? Is she going to be stalled in some way? And there's still room for that, but I don't know. It's cool to hear her say that she's going to continue to be impressive, but she's also going to be insecure, which I think kind of lines up with her character, who she is and who she's been in the movie so far. So,
and then parents.
Here
we go again.
The parents thing is not satisfied for her and the audience, Daisy Ridley says. That's something she's still trying to figure out. Where does she come from? It's not that she doesn't believe it, but she feels there's more to the story, and she needs to figure out what's come before so she can figure out what to do next.
Okay.
What's your reaction, Ryan? I feel like there's some subtext in your facial expressions and your reaction there. What do you think?
I mean, I love the way it played out in Last Jedi. I love the implications of the story with her just being no one. You know, Rey is no one from nowhere. And yet, but I felt like that was kind of like punctuated by, you know, that final scene with Broom Boy in The Last Jedi. I thought that all fit really well. I thought it was really poetic. It rhymed. It was great. I was super satisfied with that, and I thought it meant way more interesting implications to the story than her being like a Skywalker, a Solo, or a Kenobi.
Yeah.
But I guess we're going back to that. That debate is open again to some degree, and I think it could be, you know, a certain point of view sort of thing, where yes, that's true. What, you know, what Kylo, you know, got her to say, and hi kitty cat, and you know, about her parents being filthy junk traders, you know, drunks dead in a pauper's grave on Jakku. I think that's true, but maybe there's a true birth, like those her caretakers or the people who she was entrusted to are like nobodies in a pauper's grave on Jakku, but maybe there was something before that. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
that's like the most positive spin I can put on it.
Okay. I think they will. Her parents will be nobodies. I think that her parents will be nobodies, but she'll want to know more about how and why they left her, and she'll want to know kind of. Yeah, I think like just because like your parents aren't famous, they're not Kenobis or Skywalkers, doesn't mean like you would be done wanting to know anything about them.
Yeah.
So I think it could be as simple as that. It's like, yeah. And also, how does Kylo know? Like, how does Kylo know who her parents were? Like, is it through the Force? I guess would be the suggestion, but yeah, I don't know. So like, you hear from some guy who's you're connected to and all that stuff, but also clearly has an agenda.
Yeah,
and
but I mean, she's the one who said it. It wasn't him telling her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he presents himself as like, hey, I can tell you who your parents are, and like, why? Why can he tell her? Like, just because like he can read her mind, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know, or because they're so connected, and that's cool. But I'm just saying, like, your adversary / like, whatever tells you that, and maybe he tells you because he kind of can sense that that, but I just feel like you'd still want to know more, like, than just they weren't famous. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's what it'll be, and there could be some kind of surprise in there or something, but I think that they can still maintain the truth of like she is just a special person because of who she is and not because of where she comes from, while still learning more about where she comes from. Hopefully, that's my hope for this situation.
That would be my hope as well. I guess
mean, if you think about like where she starts out in The Force Awakens, it's like, she's obsessed with the idea that somebody's coming back for her. She's scratching the days onto the side of the AT-AT. Like, she's desperate for belonging, and she's desperate for family. And, I think, like, her new friends, and Leia and whoever can fill that gap to a certain extent. But, like, I think if you're her, you're never going to stop wanting to know about your past. Like, you just can't be like, well, I'm really good friends with Finn and Poe now, and Leia's kind of a surrogate mom to me, and there's this Force ghost that shows up once in a while and talks to me, so I don't even care why my parents left me on Jakku anymore. Like, that would be something you'd work through your whole life. You'd never be just like done with that, I feel like. So especially not just because like one dude said to you like, well, they're dead, who cares? And in that moment when he said it, like, he tells her she's nobody, you're nothing, you don't matter to anyone except for me. And that's just like, it's the scene is great, but I don't think that should be a satisfying solution to that problem for Rey. Well, this guy tells me that nobody gives a crap about me except for him, and that my parents sucked because they were drunks and they're dead and they weren't famous like his parents. So I guess I don't care anymore. I'll just move on with my life. Like, I don't think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I also think that Rey, like, her friends and, Poe and Leia and Finn, and even, like, Luke in his own way, like, they matter to her, but they still don't, like, get her. And she has, like, she's in another place, like, and that's where, that line, everyone thinks they know me, no one does, like, where that gets really interesting, related to this. So I definitely don't think, like, her new friends have, like, maybe they filled a void, but not, like, all of the voids.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of the relationship between Rey and Kylo Ren, the author of the article here writes, naturally, Kylo's destiny will lead to at least one lightsaber clash with Rey. Abrams sees the duo as two sides of the same coin. We've heard him say that, and Daisy and Adam say that so many times. That's my interjection. But noting, JJ notes, even when they're not together, they still haunt each other in a way. They know they are each other's unresolved business. So that's cool. And that's very
interesting. Yeah.
I mean, it's very in line with The Last Jedi
Uh-huh.
and the way that relationship was handled in that movie. And Chris Terrio has talked about how that was, such interesting fodder, and they're going to just kind of continue that further. So that's good. Adam Driver rejects any labels for the Rey-Kylo relationship. I don't think it's all one thing. Part of the fun of playing it is the boundaries of it keep changing. At times it's more intimate, sometimes less intimate, sometimes it's codependent, and then it's obviously adversarial. So that's a lot, actually, more than Daisy or Adam can really ever usually say about the Rey-Kylo thing.
Yeah.
And personally, that's what I like about that relationship, is that it is not one thing, and that, like, yes, there's romantic tension there. Yes, there's intimacy. Yes, there is a clear connection. But they're also it's way more complicated than that. And it'll be really interesting to see if the conclusion of the movie is to resolve those complications into a more straightforward relationship, or if the resolution of their relationship will be that the relationship is complicated, and it always was, and it can remain that. So that's kind of my whole thing with we don't have to get into it too much right now, but that's kind of my whole thing with Kylo Ren, is like, I feel like he is the most complicated and messy character and villain, and that's why I find him so interesting. And so, I think all these characters are going to have a resolution of some kind, and I think Kylo should too, but I kind of hope that that complexity won't be smoothed out and simplified in his resolution. Like I've said many times, and I'm saying right now, I think he'll be redeemed on some level, but I don't really want it to be this like clean, simple resolution. Because I think like the complex nature of his character is what makes it interesting. And I think I would say the same thing for the Rey and Kylo dynamic as well. I don't really want to see it resolved in a simple way, but for it to maintain kind of that complexity and I don't know if ambiguity is the right word, but for it to remain, a little bit of a lot of different feelings.
Yeah. I think there's like two ends of the spectrum around how that relationship is going to resolve itself. I think there's like one end of the spectrum that's like Rey chopping off all his limbs with a lightsaber. And then I think the other end of the spectrum is like them like making out at the end. And I think what we'll probably get is like some making out and then some limb chopping, and it's gonna be a lot more kind of in the middle, a little of both. It's gonna be messy.
I would say probably some metaphoric making out and metaphoric limb chopping, because I don't think it'll get that extreme on either side personally, but I think like the intention's not right, but the significance, no, that's not right either, but the meaning of that will probably be there. Like, I don't think you'll actually see them embrace in a romantic way, and I don't think she'll actually kill him or dismember him or anything like that, but I think there will be a lot of affection and then also a lot of aggression between them. But I think that his story probably ends in this movie not at her hands, but at maybe Palpatine's hands, or maybe through an action of his own that he takes, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. What I keep kind of going back to thinking about this is I think a lot about the scene in Force Awakens with Kylo and Han Solo on the bridge right before Kylo kills Han Solo. And I think there's going to be like something, I feel like there's going to be something that echoes that scene in The Rise of Skywalker between Rey and Kylo. I don't think it will play out exactly the same way, but I think there will be a scene that is as loaded and gives a similar feeling, and it might even echo it like visually. But I don't know.
So you're thinking Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen, huh? A little bit.
Oh.
I don't think I can go that road.
Well,
but maybe.
I don't know if it will go that far.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. It'll be interesting. Yeah, I don't know. And I love the fact that we're a couple weeks away from the release of The Rise of Skywalker, and I really don't know how it's all going to resolve between them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can guess, but it's still pretty anything goes, at least for me, who's not reading, not trying to find out, you know.
Yeah.
I assume there's no. I mean, I assume people don't really know what's going to happen as far as all that goes. So I feel like if it was out there, it'd probably be hard to avoid. You know, it's the kind of thing that maybe like an episode of The Mandalorian that like once people knew, they'd be pretty outspoken about it. But and like as far as I know, I don't know. I stayed away from spoilers for The Mandalorian too, but I don't remember hearing anybody saying they knew ahead of time about Baby Yoda, you know.
And Anthony Breznican knew something. He knew that there was going to be a child in the show that the Mandalorian was going to have to take care of. But he did not know it was Baby Yoda. So there was like that talk was out there.
Yeah, I even knew that, I think, since like probably the time of Celebration or something.
What?
Well, I say knew that. Not that I knew it, but like I had heard the scuttlebutt. I'd heard some talk like, oh, I think the Mandalorian's going to have to protect a child in the show. That's going to be like a big part of the focus of the show. Yeah, I knew that.
Oh, whoa. I'd never even heard that.
Yeah. So I had known that, but what I'm saying is that like,
well, thanks for keeping that a secret.
Sure. Yeah. See, you would accuse me earlier in the show of not being able to be like subtle in my hints.
No, I wasn't accusing you specifically. I was just saying like.
Yeah. No, I'm kidding. But no. But what I'm saying is like to me, that is like basic. We know that the Resistance and the First Order are both looking for something important in this movie, and they're on a race to get to it. Okay. Like, we know that about The Rise of Skywalker on some level because they've talked about it in interviews. And I feel like knowing the Mandalorian is likely going to be having to protect a child of some kind in this show, that's about, like, that level of detail and spoiler. But, like, the fact that it's Baby Yoda, whoa, that's, like, a big specific thing that they would want to keep secret. You know what I mean? Knowing he's protecting a child, to me, it's, like, not that big. I mean, it's, like, a one-sentence plot summary of the show. But knowing it's Baby Yoda, okay, there's a big surprise that you would want to keep under wraps. And I think, as far as I know, I mean, they did. I don't know. I haven't seen anybody now saying like, oh man, when I heard about Baby Yoda 2 months ago, I was so excited for The Mandalorian. Like, I think they were able to keep it secret, which is crazy because it was an actual puppet on the set, you know. And I saw an interview with Rian Johnson this week where he was talking about going to the set and seeing the puppet and thinking the puppet was like so cute and all that. So I don't know how they kept it under wraps, but I think they did. So
like when you knew it was a child, were you like speculating this whole time?
Not really. I was just like, oh, there's probably some kid that he comes across and decides that he's gonna take care of, you know. And like in the trailers for the show, we saw stuff that we now know is like flashback footage of him as a kid, and I was like, oh, that's probably the kid he has to take care of. And there's that shot of the woman like looking at his mask or putting her hands on his mask in one trailer, and I was like, oh, that's probably the mom of the child he's taking care of. And I was just like, well, okay, whatever, you know. I don't know. It didn't. Again, like I just feel like if you were going to describe the show in one sentence, like you would include that. So to me, it didn't feel like any big, like, oh my God, I can't believe I know this. Like, it just felt like what motivates the primary character in the show. Oh, he's protecting a kid. Like, there you go. You know, that's just kind of like what. And I'm sure there was more detail about that kind of stuff out there, but like that's just kind of what I had heard. I'd seen somebody tweet it or somebody said something about it or whatever, and I was like, oh, okay. But, you know, I didn't want to know more than that, so I didn't like try to investigate it or figure it out. But
are we talking about The Mandalorian now?
No.
Oh,
not yet.
Okay.
It's weird because like we've been planning on keeping the Mandalorian for the end of the show, but we just keep talking about it all throughout the show.
I wonder why that is.
But we keep talking about The Rise of Skywalker all throughout the show, too, so maybe that's also pretty important.
What if they're both good?
Yeah, what if they are? Okay, keep going. Anthony Daniels says, JJ and Chris came up with an aspect of 3PO we hadn't seen before that's remarkably clever. They go down deep into ancient Star Wars, and come up with something refreshingly new. Anthony Daniels also says, it's a very good ending, and a good ending feels right. Love it. Oscar Isaac says, there's been a very long chess match that's been being played between the Jedi and the Sith all the way back to the very beginning. It's an amazing thing to see that really come to the forefront. That's cool.
So is he teasing some new pewters?
I don't think he's teasing new pewter, no. But I think that it's kind of cool that the first two movies like barely use the word Sith, and it seemed like, oh, I guess we're just forgetting about the Sith, and this isn't quite as high stakes. And then in the last one, it's going to turn out like, no, it's all been about that all along. I love that.
Yeah.
JJ asked when Force Ghosts, or what Force Ghosts can and cannot do in our world. Says that's probably best answered by not answering it. So.
Yep.
I like it, but it's a little bit of a pregnant, lack of a statement there. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. God,
what
was I was just reading something about like, and I didn't even like realize it, but something about like how, maybe it was this interview where they were talking about Yoda in Last Jedi setting the tree on fire, like causing the lightning, and people are like, wait, that's like a little bit further past what we've seen Force Ghosts do, and I didn't even think about it like during The Last Jedi.
I didn't think about it when I was watching the movie either, no, but yeah, there has been a lot of discussion of that, and the fact that Yoda seems more corporeal, how do you pronounce that word? I think that's how you pronounce it, but than Force Ghosts in the past. But like we even saw that from Empire to Jedi with Obi-Wan, and there's been, I think some people theorize like it has more to do with Luke's power than it does than the Force Ghost power. So I don't know, but
yeah, because like Obi-Wan's like sits down on a tree, like at some point.
Yeah, in Jedi, but he doesn't do that in Empire. He just he's more blue glowy. So Great. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where that goes, and if the Force Ghosts do kind of interact with characters of the world more in The Rise of Skywalker, then is that going to be a situation where people look back at The Last Jedi and say, oh, they really were kind of building this intentionally in certain ways, or will people just still say, never mind, because Rian Johnson doesn't know about Force Ghosts? I don't know.
Gravity bombs.
Speaking of Rian Johnson, in a Rolling Stone interview with J.J. Abrams, I'm just going to jump to this later quote in interest of time.
These questions.
Yeah, see, that was Kevin's response. I like the fact that this interviewer asked these questions because I like giving JJ a platform to respond to this stuff.
Yeah.
Because you hear everybody talk about all this crap all the time, and like JJ's not gonna like in an interview, he's not gonna be like, and listen, by the way, there's some people saying this dumb crap, and here's my opinion on it. But like if you ask him about it, then he can actually defend himself. If you don't ask him about it and he starts defending himself, then he looks like a petty little, like it's a bad look. Yeah. But when you ask him,
think it's mostly the last two that I'm like, God, how did you keep yourself from like cringing to death as you were asking these?
Yeah, I wouldn't have the guts to ask him.
God.
I wouldn't have the guts to ask him. But yeah. But he's asking about the Last Jedi, and JJ says that when he read Ryan's script, what I felt was that with everything that happens in the movie, and quite a lot does, nothing sort of obviated a sense of inevitability where I thought the story could go. And I'm not going to lie, as somebody who teaches writing and stuff, I feel like that statement is a little confusing. Nothing sort of obviated a sense of inevitability where I thought the story would go. So nothing took away a sense of inevitability where I thought the story would go. So I think what he's saying is that, like, nothing took away our choice or our freedom to do what we wanted to do, and nothing got in the way of where we ultimately thought the story would go. It's kind of a weird way of saying it, but he's just a smarter guy.
Well,
than
I
me.
mean, who says obviated?
Yeah, no.
J.J.
But
Abrams
obviated a
is
sense
who?
of inevitability. It's like, man, I get caught in like a loop when I'm trying to figure out how that works. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's circular reasoning or something on that. But
Yeah.
but no. So he's saying like, hey, he did a lot of stuff. A lot happens in that movie, but nothing happened that made it so I couldn't do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So that's cool. This is really interesting. Do you need to end on a note that's true to the joy of the first one? Well, you certainly want to feel, this is his response, you certainly want to feel like it was worth the journey and like there's something satisfying without talking about happy or sad endings. So he doesn't want to address whether it's a happy or sad ending, which is good. The challenge was to find a way to be consistent, honor what's come before, but also do something that's unexpected. It had to be something that feels like it's part of the piece, but relevant to today. And then while you're on the tightrope, you want to dance. You want the thing to have delight. So you're on this razor's edge. So it needs to be weighty, it needs to be significant, and it also needs to be fun and joyful.
Mm-hmm. It has to, acknowledge what came in the past, but it also has to be modern and, indicative of like the times we're living in.
Right. So just a straight up like happy ending, like Return of the Jedi style. Although even Return of the Jedi is not like the most obvious happy ending in some ways. I mean, that movie, it's a weird thing, the Return of the Jedi, because it gets talked about even by me sometimes like it's like this overly simple kids movie. But then I also think it has the single greatest and most complex and interesting and like weighty moment in all of Star Wars, which is like Luke throwing his lightsaber away and saying, I'm a Jedi like my father before me, and all that. Like that is so smart and perfect, and just like there's so much depth to that. But then the overall package of the movie and the way the story is told and stuff outside of that element of it is a little more simple. Like it's more of just like a fun,
Yeah, like the first like 45 minutes are like pure pulp.
Well, and then even like, yeah, that's true. But then even like a lot of what's going on in the last hour plus of the movie is that too, except for when they cut to the scenes with Luke and Darth Vader. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and honestly, I feel like The Rise of Skywalker probably will have a little bit of that going on too. Well, I don't know. I think probably everything happening towards the end of the movie, or really in most of the movie, will feel pretty weighty and pretty heavy and pretty intense.
Yeah.
But they'll find a way to make, it'll have a little bit of a upbeat feeling at the same time, Hopefully it'll be a little more smooth than maybe the juxtaposition of those kinds of emotions in Return of the Jedi,
Yeah.
Or Phantom Menace,
I'm
to be honest.
I'm honestly expecting something more along the lines of like Revenge of the Sith.
Wow.
Like not like I don't think it will be as dark is not the right word, but hopeless as Revenge of the Sith, but I think like that movie, I mean, as soon as Anakin, chops off Dooku's head, like there is just like a sense of weightiness from that point on that like it's relentless in that movie. And I think there's going to be a lot of similar feelings in Rise of Skywalker.
Could be. I mean, it is a tightrope, as JJ says, if you think about like the fact that, especially if you buy into George's, I think, somewhat revisionistic history of what Star Wars is in the 90s and into the 2000s, which is that like, oh, Star Wars is this great tragedy of Anakin Skywalker. Like that's what Star Wars is. It's the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker, because he used to say that all the time. It's a 6-part story. It's the story of this boy who is hopeful and innocent and, fell to the dark side and then is redeemed by his son. But it's a tragic story. Like even if you look at it like that way, like Return of the Jedi is like this really hopeful, positive ending because the rebels win and Luke wins and everybody wins, But if you look at it as Anakin's story, it's like, well, Anakin, does something great in the end, but what he did is he saved his son's life and then died. You know what I mean? And the last 30 years of his life was genocide and slaughter. You know what I mean? So it's not really like, if you really do look at it as like that 6-part story, then it's more tragic with just like a bright spot in the end, but it's
Yeah.
overall more of a tragic thing. So then, like, how do you make The Rise of Skywalker a fun movie, a fun romp, but also have it be, you know, a significant conclusion to what potentially, depending on how you look at it, is just a big tragic story, you know? I think I'm more tempted to look at the saga as like 3 sets of 3 movies that, you know, kind of have their own arc between them. And I would say the prequels are more of the tragic ones, and then the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy are a little less that and a little more, I don't know, I guess the hero's journey type thing or whatever. Not that that's not part of the prequels, but...
Yeah, well, I mean, we can't really say what the overall feeling of the sequel trilogy is until we see this movie.
That's true. That is true. Yes. But I think definitely it'll have a mixture of tragedy and also kind of adventure and hopefulness and all that kind of stuff going on in it, right? So it's got to have
and
that
hopefully some letting go of the past. Dude, I just watched I watched Toy Story 4 last night.
Okay.
For the first time. Have you seen that movie?
No.
No?
I don't think I've seen Toy Story 2, 3, or 4. Maybe 2. I don't know. Yeah.
Ooh, I mean, 1 and 2 are great, but 3 and 4 are incredible.
Okay.
And 4 is like for the people who are saying like there's no way a Disney Star Wars movie is going to like end on like even a complicated note. Like, watch Toy Story 4 because man, that is a movie about letting go of the past. And it's not what you would consider to be like a quote unquote happy ending, even though like there's resolution. And
I think
it's not a tragic ending either, but it's bold.
It's complicated.
It's complicated. It's complicated.
So you don't have to take complicated characters and boil them down to just like a simple solution in the end for a movie to have a conclusion.
Turns out you don't.
Okay, good.
Even if it is a movie aimed at a broad audience, it turns out broad audiences aren't completely stupid. So, like, just because you are aiming for that audience, you can still like do something interesting, as well. I guess is something that movies can do. But
in news that is completely stupid, my watch just told me that my Bloomberg officially announced he's running in the okay. But
we have enough like simple villains in our current society that like we have to go to the movies to see more complicated humans.
But I think if you're somebody who's out there saying like, well, Disney Star Wars, they won't do this or they won't do that or whatever, like you're already kind of discrediting yourself because, I mean, Disney makes the Star Wars movies, they make the Marvel movies, they make so many different things, and the idea that like, well, once Disney gets their hands on something, it has to be like a certain way or whatever, I think is just, you know, you're already proving that you're thinking about this in way oversimplified terms, and I just don't think that there's much evidence that the way Disney has made Star Wars movies is like particularly childish or, you know, broad or whatever. Like Rogue One, you know, The Last Jedi, and even The Force Awakens, and I'm sure The Rise of Skywalker, whatever. How are they any less Star Wars, or how are they altered to be, I don't know, somehow fitting into Disney's like, you know, evil worldview or whatever than any other Star Wars movie. I mean,
which is also like ridiculous to talk about in a world where Disney puts out movies like Inside Out and like Moana and stuff, and like they make these like in Toy Story 3 and 4, like they make these movies for a broad audience that, I mean, a lot of them aren't successful in like their goals, but the ones that are, like, they're mass market entertainment, but like also like, you know, like modern myths like about the human condition.
Yeah, I just think too, and I was guilty of this when Disney first bought Star Wars, which I've talked about, you know, tried to, you know, hold myself accountable for many times in the past.
Yeah.
But I was guilty of this initially. But I just think like if you are going to the Disney Star Wars talking point, like you are you're just taking the low-hanging fruit, and I think it's something that people love to exploit and use as a shorthand way of it's just like a cheap shot against the new Star Wars stuff, and it's not a thoughtful one, and it's not based in evidence. It's just a cheap way to kind of to attack it. So anyway, I think the ending will be what it will be, regardless of the fact that Disney's financing it. Like that doesn't have any really, I don't think, any kind of factor into it at all.
Yeah, and then like also the same people like didn't like The Last Jedi because it was too messy and too
too
complicated and had like too we
can't get into it. Yeah.
No.
So yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the GL stuff.
The GL stuff. Okay. They ask him how does he feel about the fact that George doesn't like The Force Awakens.
Dude, the actual question, like...
okay.
He also reveals, talking about Bob Iger, he also reveals George Lucas's dissatisfaction with The Force Awakens. How did you feel about it then? How do you feel about it now? Yeah, like, how do you ask that question?
See, I gotta defend. I don't even know. I have forgotten the name of the interviewer now. We should look that up. But I will defend this person again because, like, dude, Bob Iger put that out in the book, and then like every website on the internet ran a story about how George Lucas doesn't like The Force Awakens. J.J. Abrams, to defend himself or to like, you know, be involved in that conversation, if he just starts talking about it, he looks like a tool. He looks like he's defensive and insecure and all those things. But if this guy asks him, now he can like make a comment about it. And so I think like, I don't want to read just puff piece interviews with these people as the movie's coming out. Like I want to read an interview that asks these tough questions, you know? And I know like some people have suggested that like maybe asking these kinds of questions is just sort of like giving a voice to more cynical or angry, you know, perspectives about Star Wars or whatever. But to me, it's like, no, like, let's hear what he has to say. That's the most interesting thing you could ask J.J. Abrams now, because he can't talk about The Rise of Skywalker, really. So, like, let's hear what he thinks about it.
Yeah.
And
it's
his
also
response,
the most awkward thing you can ask J.J. Abrams.
Yes, which, I mean, yeah, that's why, I mean, I'm almost more impressed that he asked it or she asked it, whoever wrote this piece, but because it's like, it would suck to ask him this question, but you're going to get some good stuff out of it. And I don't think it's like, dude, I know your movie sucks and George Lucas knows your movie sucks, so what do you think about that? It's not like
are you gonna
everybody
make another
hated
sucky movie like Force Awakens?
It's not like, oh, you made The Force Awakens, that was a failure. What do you think about that? It's like, no, one guy didn't like it, and it's very publicly known he didn't like it, so what do you think, you know? He says, I've only had gratitude for George. It's probably a complicated thing for him to decide you're going to sell this one thing you created that was your baby to anyone. That must be more complicated than signing a check and smiling about it. But he's been incredibly gracious. He's been super generous. He came over. We had a meeting when we first started working on this new movie. And right there, it's like, I'm glad the person asked the question because, you know, I mean, the people who saw the headline that George Lucas hates The Force Awakens, that's a lot bigger audience than the people are actually going to read this response. But if you do read it, you see like, okay, yeah, I didn't like The Force Awakens necessarily, but we still talk. We're still working together. Like he still came over and we sat down across the table from each other and we had a conversation about what The Rise of Skywalker should be. And, you know, it's not like this great like scandal that George Lucas was dissatisfied with The Force Awakens. It's a fact of life. And so like we could talk about it, you know, or he can talk about it, JJ. So I think that's good. We've done nothing but...
It's like tiptoeing around like a divorce or something.
Yes, right. Like, it happened. Yeah. Everyone knows it happened. So, I mean, you know, it is what it is. Yeah. We've done nothing, JJ says, we've done nothing but try and adhere to some fundamental aspects of the story. It wasn't a difficult thing to try and do. And again, he was really gracious. So I'm only grateful. Do I wish that The Force Awakens had been his favorite movie of all time? Yes, I only wanted to do well by him. I would just say that I have nothing but profound respect for the guy, and I'm still truly, even more so now, working on these movies in awe of what he created. So a very nice response. And then... yeah, well, I don't know. Did you want to comment on that or?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
And then they ask him like, hey, a lot of people said that Rey seems preternaturally gifted even for a Jedi, that she learns things faster than, say, Luke Skywalker ever did. Again, you might get mad that this person asked this question because it's like giving credence to the Rey's and Mary Sue thing or whatever. But to me, I'm
Right.
happy that they asked it, because now JJ can say, yeah, spooky, right? Smiles. It's a fair point. It's not an accident. Boom. I love it.
Yeah,
I love
that's
it.
great.
I
Yep.
love the fact that he has the opportunity to say, like, yeah, she did learn really fast, and guess what? We did that on purpose. So suck it. You know what I mean? I love
Yeah.
that. So yeah,
Yep.
and I think it hints at the fact that, there's more to learn about Rey in this movie, and hopefully it's not that, like, well, we took a cell from Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we took a cell from Anakin Skywalker, and we took a cell from Yoda, and we put them all together and made a clone baby, and that's why she's so powerful. But I think it speaks to the confidence that they have in the character. Like, no, she's a Jedi, and we've created a protagonist for this new series of movies that, you know what, people are going to compare her to Luke Skywalker, and yeah, she might be just as cool or even more cool than Luke Skywalker. You know what I mean? So I love that.
Yeah. And I think like when you ask questions like this, like you have to be confident that your interviewee can handle them
Yeah.
and has, is aware of them and has thought about them and is willing to talk about them. Because I think, like, I'm so used to, like, like, modern, like, I don't know, just, like, modern politics, the current administration, and, like, people asking, like, questions and then them, like, trying to, like, gaslight you to be like, no, who said that? No one said that. Or like, oh, but this other person is like way more bad. Like, you should focus on this. Like, and after it's like, it's so weird and refreshing to have someone like actually answer complicated questions, even if it is just about a Star Wars movie, because like we're not getting that in our society right now. With all the questions being asked. And so I think, like, yeah, you have to you have to kind of know JJ and like know that he's willing to open up about this stuff and has like a thoughtful answer in mind, or else it would just be a disaster. Like, it would be like him, storming out of the room or whatever.
Yeah.
But that he's not that guy.
True. Yeah. And it is in Rolling Stone too. So, I mean, I'm sure, like, not because it's Rolling Stone, but just because it's a print magazine or whatever, I'm sure that this interview happens, the story's written up, the story is sent to Disney PR, like they probably approve it or whatever. Or if not, maybe that's not true, but I bet it is. But even if that's not true, then probably what happens is, at the very least, like if JJ got mad and the answer wasn't good, like, you don't include that. You just don't put that question in the story. Yeah. So, I mean, that's another thing to consider too, is it's like, we can ask the question, and if it doesn't, land, then it doesn't have to be in there too. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. But you also don't want to like completely sour like Rolling Stone's coverage of Star Wars for the next 20 years. Like, you don't want to ruin that relationship. Right. I mean, they'll still be Rolling Stone in 20 years. In some form.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah.
Okay, last thing.
Uh-huh.
And we're going to spend some time talking about The Mandalorian, a little bit of time. Colin Trevorrow talked a little bit about The Rise of Skywalker this week. Yeah, I feel bad for him. I don't know what he's like as a person.
I don't either.
He comes across well here. And something I think that's worth giving the guy some credit for, and hopefully it was an honest and well-intentioned thing, and not just some sort of like, well, I shouldn't even say that. Yes, it's a good, let's give him credit. Let's give him credit.
Let's give him credit. Yep.
Let's give him credit. He's donating his residuals, which should be probably substantial, from The Rise of Skywalker to Alexander Devine Children's Hospital, because it came out this week or last that he's going to be credited for story contributions on this movie, which means that he will be, I think, compensated in as far as residuals go. I don't know how that stuff works in Hollywood, but he's going to make a little bit of money off the gross or whatever of the movie. So it's not like he's just getting a fee for having written for it. I think he's going to get, some kind of cut. Small, but he'll get some kind of cut. So he's going to donate all of that to the Alexander Devine Children's Hospital, which is great. And I think the fact that he's getting a story credit probably means that, a tiny little bit of what he had written or of the plot that he kind of came up with is also going to be part of this movie. That could be because they looked at his outline and said, we want to use a little bit of it. Although JJ has said we started from scratch. So part of me wonders, too, if it's just one of those things where it's like, well, there are certain things that definitely would happen in response to The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, and they were in his story. And since he spent some time working on that story and, we're going to go in a similar way because how would you not? Like, we'll just hook the guy up. Not hook the guy up, but, like, we're not going to sit and try to argue about whether or not it was his idea or our idea or whatever. We'll just... Yeah. Let's just give the guy some credit. And we already fired him from the movie, and that sucks. I mean, can you imagine being hired to write Star Wars and direct Star Wars and then publicly, being fired for it or from it or whatever? It's like, it's awful.
I think there's a lot of people who can imagine that. There's a growing list.
All right, that's true. That's true. But my point is, like, he's getting the story contribution. I'm happy for him. He's donating his money from that to a children's hospital. That's even better. But I'm not going to go into The Rise of Skywalker thinking, I bet Colin Trevorrow is really responsible for a lot of the ideas in this movie. I'm going to go into it thinking he worked on it, and they're going to reward him for working on it, and some maybe really broad ideas, he shared with JJ and they agreed on or whatever. But I kind of don't think JJ took his script and ran with it. I think they did their own thing. But
I also think, like, any part of the movie I don't like, I'll just be like, oh, that was probably a Colin Trevorrow scene.
Rude. He's donating his residuals to a children's hospital. You're awful. But he does. Colin Trevorrow does say here that bringing back the Empire was or the Emperor was a JJ idea that he brought to the table when he came on board. And he says it's honestly something I never even considered. I commend him for it. This was a tough story to unlock, and he found the key. Again, like, I just think he looks good in this interview because he's kind of being humble. And the word on the street was that wasn't how he was when he was working on Star Wars. I don't know if that's true or not, but in the interviews, he's coming across very humbly saying, like, hey, man, it was a tough story to figure out. I mean, I think, like, the subtext there is, like, I'm not working on the movie anymore because I couldn't unlock this tough story, and he did it, Yeah. So that's pretty humble to almost say, dude, I don't know, he did it, I couldn't, but I think that's what he's kind of saying there. So although it does make you question the sort of argument from Lucasfilm and JJ and stuff that the Emperor coming back was there from day one. In The Force Awakens, we knew the Emperor was coming back. So the way I think about that is when I think about like best practice in teaching. Again, now we're going back to education, where, like, you don't give the kids the answer and you don't explicitly tell them how to do something. You give them the pieces, and then, you evaluate them based on how well you gave the pieces and how well they were able to, like, put the pieces together and figure something out and solidify their learning. Yeah. So I wonder if it is something where like Lucasfilm is like, all right, Colin, we're still missing the one big part. Go back and check your work again. Yeah. Who knows? I think it might have been all right, Colin, this script is really not hitting the mark, man. Like, sorry, like we're looking at your script and it's just clear that you're not the guy for this. I think it might have been more of that kind of thing, but I do see your analogy. That makes sense. But it was probably a rocky relationship, and there's been word that like maybe I'm mixing this up with the Game of Thrones guys. Actually, I was like, oh, they just couldn't. They wanted to go in two different directions. I don't know, but I just don't think they liked where he was taking it. So it was probably. It was probably not like you're missing one piece. Maybe it was like these are the pieces. Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, So I don't know. Who knows? It's all speculation. Someday we'll maybe learn a
20
little
years
bit about
from
it.
now, when we get that definitive book.
Hey, maybe in Phil Shostak's The Art of the Rise of Skywalker, there'll be a little bit on the Trevorrow period. You know what I mean? Because
There'll be a little bit.
Art and stuff was definitely
yeah,
being developed during that time. So yeah.
I wonder if that will even make it into the book.
The TIE Echelon, for instance, at Galaxy's Edge, that came from the Trevorrow era.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't know if it's in the Rise of Skywalker or not, but it's at Galaxy's Edge. All right. Lots of talk of the Rise of Skywalker and the Mandalorian sprinkled in, but we want to give a little bit of time here to the Chapter 3 episode, The Sin. Maybe the best episode yet, directed by Deborah Chow, who's awesome. She gave a couple interviews this weekend. You point out in the notes here that her father's love of Hong Kong action cinema, like John Woo's Hard Boiled, is something that influenced her in making this episode.
Yep. I watched the episode again this morning, and that was like after reading this interview, and I was like, oh God, I totally see it. Like, I see it so hard in that scene. Yeah. I think you see it kind of throughout. I think like the entire scene of the Mandalorian. Oh, spoilers, by the way. The entire scene of the Mandalorian extracting Baby Yoda, like going into the building and just like the quick kills and the all that, like that's where it begins. Like all these like narrow hallways and just like using the environment in some like ways. Like it very much like. After reading this interview, it wasn't something I caught on my first viewing, obviously, but after reading this interview, I was like, oh yeah. But then it like all like culminates because there's always like in like Hong Kong action cinema, which I'm not like super well versed in, like, but I have seen stuff like Hard Boiled. It just like there is an escalation to the action, and it like starts off with like, you know, one or two kills like in a hallway at a time, and like it keeps building up, and by the time he was like rolling on a cart like picking guys off and stuff, you know, towards the end there, I was like, oh yeah, like this is extremely that genre. And what's interesting is like that's not really a genre that is kind of part of the Star Wars DNA. Like obviously westerns, samurai films, you know, 50s sci-fi serials are all like what we consider like the force material for Star Wars, but like definitely not like 80s and 90s Hong Kong action cinema.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where like the Mandalorian's like, hey, guess what? Star Wars can also be this, which it seems to like to do every week.
Yeah, for sure. No, that stuff is awesome. She did a killer job with the episode, and I think a lot of people are rightfully excited to see her Obi-Wan show even more now that that she's kind of put like maybe the best episode so far of The Mandalorian out there. So I think she has one more this season too, right? Aren't her and Dave Filoni the two directors that have 2 episodes? I think. Could be wrong about that, but anyway.
I hope so.
We know she's got 6 episodes of Obi-Wan because she's doing all of them, which is great. So
yeah, and she's we should note, first woman to direct live action Star Wars, and the first filmmaker of Asian heritage to direct live action Star Wars. Is she the first person of color to direct live action Star Wars?
No, last week's episode was directed by Rick, Fumiyama.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
okay.
But before that, at least live action Star Wars, then yes.
So yeah, that's like, you know, all those times where like white dudes on certain podcasts were like, oh, what does it matter if a woman directs it or not? What's it even matter? Like, who cares as long as it's good? Like, and then like this comes out and people are like, whoa, that was a very interesting voice, and this is really cool. And yeah, maybe we should try this some more.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's see what else. Werner Herzog implying he knows where the Mandos are or is looking. Which line is there a specific line you're referring to there?
So yeah, that I noticed when I was watching it this morning, where he's like, and we still haven't looked up the name of his character, and we still are just calling him Werner Herzog.
Yeah. I feel like once I know his name, I'll still just call him Werner Herzog. So
Yeah. Herzog and Baby Yoda, the show. So yeah, the part where he's like, it's almost as difficult to find this much Beskar as it is to find a Mandalorian in these trying times.
Oh yeah, okay, I see.
And and so that makes me wonder if because we don't the Mandalorian goes through and kills a bunch of stormtroopers and stuff in Herzog's bunker. Fortress, I don't know. He doesn't kill the doctor, which is cool.
Yep.
I like that. And it was a very spoilers for 2017's Halloween film, but it was a very Michael Myers not killing the baby type scene.
Yes.
Where I was like, oh god, is he gonna do this? Okay, no. Okay,
Yeah.
Of course not. He's a killer, but he's not that killer.
I don't know though, because I think that doctor is way overselling the whole I'm scared and I'm super innocent thing,
Oh, he could be.
I mean, granted, he does say, hey, the only reason Baby Yoda's still alive is because of me, and that might be true, but he just acts so meek and so scared all the time that I feel like it's a persona, and he's intentionally doing that. But we'll see.
I mean, his first line,
because if he turns out to be super evil, then it'll be that much more delicious after all this. Oh my god, I just really don't want that baby to get killed. Maybe not because I want to torture it, or be really evil with it in some way.
That's true. He's still complicit for sure. But his first line is "Don't hurt him. It's just a child."
Yeah. Which is if it turns out he's the worst, then that makes that line goes from being a nice gesture to super evil because you're planning on hurting that child and it is just a child, you know what I mean? So we'll see. I don't know, but
he also confirms the gender in that exchange. It is a him.
Okay. Yep.
Baby Yoda is a him.
Yeah.
So there goes Baby Yaddle.
Well, it has to be a him because it's a clone of Yoda. You know what I mean? So, no, just kidding. It's not.
I mean, it's obviously Snoke, but or Rey or the Emperor.
Yeah.
Woo, bad ideas. Yeah. Anyways,
the line about the helmet.
So what I was saying was, so Werner Herzog, we don't see him in the Mando's excavation.
Yeah.
And so we can assume that he's still alive and that he's still going to play a role in this story, and perhaps he's going to hunt down some Mandalorians to or kidnap a foundling or something to force the Mandalorian into an exchange.
Yeah, I think that's a good insight. That's not something I'd considered. I kind of read that line more as just he's saying, it sucks that most of you have been, murdered, destroyed, wiped out. I mean, it's tough to find a Mandalorian these days because most of y'all are dead. You know what I mean? I thought that's what he meant, but you're probably right. I think your conclusion there makes more. And maybe not more sense, but it's a little juicier. You know what I mean? There's more to chew on there. There's more potential for further storytelling if that's what he meant by that. So I kind of like that interpretation. Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah.
Yep. Also, there's the line, I think a very intentional, of course, line in there where the armorer, is that what she's called? She asks him, have you ever removed your helmet? Has it been removed by others? So that's a little bit of a Chekhov's gun type thing right there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's coming. The helmet's coming off. I mean,
Yeah.
That's why the line's in there. And we saw in this same episode, we saw that he's willing to break codes because he breaks the bounty hunter guild code or whatever. And so I think that clearly we'll see him defy that for some important reason. You know what I mean? But yeah, and the trailer teased that as well. It's a weird idea, though. It's an interesting idea that like the Mandalorians are never supposed to remove their helmet, especially because I don't know if you ever saw the Clone Wars, but those guys run around with their helmets off like crazy. They almost never wear their helmets,
Yeah, yeah, and Rebels too. Sabine.
Yeah. I mean,
always has that helmet off.
I've seen Mandalorians with their helmets off more than I've seen them on. And it's one of those things where you got to wonder like. I don't want to have the debate now. That's famous last words from me, and I don't know that you would want to have it either, or that we'd even disagree. But, there's so much talk about, like, well, there is the Star Wars canon. There is a canon, and things can...
Yeah, no, I don't want to have this talk.
Dude, all I'm saying is that, like, it seems like this show is at least willing to say, what would be cool if Mandalorians didn't take their helmet off? Oh, but there's cartoons where they already did it. We're going to do it anyway, and I'm sure they can come up with an explanation for why that makes sense now and it didn't make sense then, but
it's obvious, the explanation.
What?
Because it's a different time period and they're in hiding.
I guess, but it makes it seem like it's like this like essential element of Mandalorian culture is that you don't take your helmet off.
It is for that culture of Mandalorians who are in hiding.
Well, I'll tell you what I like about the depiction of the Mandalorians in this show is that there's a lot more mystery to them, and it's more like they're silent. They're not silent, but they're just more quiet. I like the way that the Mandalorians are being presented in the show. Let's put it that way, okay?
Okay. And I like that too, but they're not going to bring Dave Filoni onto the show and then be like, dude, watch us like completely disregard all that stuff you did.
No, it's not about that. It's not about disrespecting or disregarding or saying that the stuff they did was bad. It's about saying, like, the idea is that some Star Wars fans, and this is propagated by Lucasfilm to a large degree, but some Star Wars fans look at the idea of the canon with a capital C as the idea that once something has been done, it cannot be undone. And once something is laid down in concrete, it is immovable and unchangeable. And I don't really think that's, for me personally, I would rather see them be willing to say, well, what we did in one medium or what we did somewhere else, or like we can play with that a little bit. It doesn't have to be like this, like there is a Star Wars encyclopedia, there is a thing, and you can't, once it's done, it's never, I just don't like, I don't think that's the point of having a story group. I don't think that's the point of having a canon, etc. It's that to me is more regressive and more prohibitive than it is like helpful, because like all this stuff can still kind of like tie together and be fun. Like you can read a book and know what's going on, and watch a movie and know what's going on, watch a cartoon. All this stuff can like tie together and everything, but you can kind of have different versions of things, and you can do like in a cartoon, maybe it was like really good to have them all run around with their helmets off, but like if you come up with this like story idea for this show, and it's a little different, like, oh, maybe it's okay that the Mandalorians seem a little different and act a little different in the TV version than they do in the cartoon version. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying like, oh, the cartoon sucks so bad, so now we got to change it. I'm saying let's not be stuck in concrete with the canon, because they both start with the letter C.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I don't think that is at all what's happening here.
Okay.
I don't think this is like proof to this agenda that you've had on this show for 5 years now about what is it. Yeah, that's not what's happening here.
Don't mischaracterize my agenda. I clearly have one. It's my agenda is don't take the canon so seriously. That's what my agenda is. Okay. Like, that's all it is.
This is a different era. These are a different set of Mandalorians in a completely different situation. Okay. It has nothing to do with it being like live action versus a cartoon.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So
all right. We'll let the listeners decide on that one.
So your stance is that anything that would work in one medium would work just as well in another medium, and there's no reason to consider that different mediums have different strengths and weaknesses.
I'm saying Mandalorians worked in the Clone Wars, and they are working really well now in live action.
And they're being presented really differently. Very differently.
Their story has continued, and there have been a lot of major events that have happened since the Clone Wars and even Rebels.
All right. Okay. All right. Fine.
Their society has changed. And
well, that's true.
So have their customs.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. I think that's part of it. I do think that's part of it. I don't think that's all of it. I think that's part of it. But okay, fine. How about this? I like the way the Mandalorians are being presented in the show.
Yeah, you're warming up to Mandos now.
Yep.
You are?
This style, because it's wildly different. It's a wildly different presentation and style of Mandalorian culture.
It's always been there. It's just
really different than it was before. Yeah, it's so much better now.
Stories are continuing. There's time.
Since we're in the spoiler section, did you see that the infantry Mandalorian, the one that is played by Jon Favreau, or at least voiced by Jon Favreau? Jon Favreau, of course, being the voice.
Favreau's his mother.
Jon Favreau, of course, being the voice of Pre Vizsla in the Clone Wars. The character he's playing now is called Paz Vizsla, or Paz Vizsla. Did you know that?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, keeper of the canon, valuer of the complex story lore of Star Wars. That is the case. Now, I have a feeling that no one will ever learn that name, and that's just like a little Easter egg type thing. But
yeah.
There is a connection there.
So yeah, I wonder if he is like a proper Vizsla. Like, I wonder if he's from that line.
He must be.
I wanna learn more about this.
He must be.
Yeah.
And it must be that in an upcoming episode we're going to learn about how the culture has completely changed from pre-Vizsla to pos-Vizsla.
Pre-Vizsla to post-Vizsla.
Yeah. Pre-Mandalorians being good to post-Mandalorians being good, Vizsla. That's where we're going.
Okay.
All right. Okay. What else? Super Battle Droids.
Yeah, Super Battle Droids.
That was cool.
Clone Wars. So we're assuming like these flashbacks during the smelting and the hammering. This is the second time we've gotten these flashbacks, and they're always during the blacksmithing sessions.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
I love The Mandalorian. I love the show. I think that is it has been in Deborah Chow's episode and in Dave Filoni's episode and in Rick Fumiyama. I apologize for not knowing his last name exactly. In all 3 episodes. I think the one thing where I've been like, I don't think this works and is very good is the flashback / in Chapter 2, it was when he was fighting the horned beast thing and he was like on the ground. But like they do a thing where they go into like slow motion and they kind of have like, they're trying to indicate that it's a memory or that like it's that the character is like not in the right mind or whatever is going on. But like I just think it feels kind of clunky. Every time it feels kind of clunky. I think the flashback of the kid like looking up, the Mandalorian as a kid looking up and seeing the doors close and all that, it just like it all just, to me, it looks bad. It looks clunky, and I mean not bad like it's not awful or anything, but I'm like, oh, this show is smooth and it just looks really good and really professional, and I get to that and I'm like, it just seems like a clunky TV show. Like I just don't think it looks good. So that's it. But
it looks different. Yeah. But I think it's supposed to.
Well, it's definitely supposed to. I'm just saying that I don't think they've done a very good job of making it look different, because to me, like, I mean, they did a good job of making it look different because it's noticeably different, but I mean, like, I feel like they did it in kind of a clunky sort of, tacky's too strong of a word, but I just don't think it works very well. I just think it doesn't look good. I don't know. So.
Well, how did you think that Super Battle Droid looked?
He looked cool. Yeah. Yeah.
So are we assuming that like, the Mandalorian? Oh God, I have to like do like time.
Why didn't I say it looks McClunky? Why would I say it looks clunky when I could say it looks McClunky?
McClunky. Oh.
Anytime they go to a flashback sequence and they're going into like slow mode or slow-mo mode, I'm gonna be like McClunky. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like,
Can't wait
you're
to
the
never watch an
canon
episode
keeper.
of this show
You're the
with you.
keeper of the canon. So, how far like is Return of the Jedi from the Clone Wars? Because the Clone Wars would have ended in Return of the Jedi era, and that would be 20 years before A New Hope. So that's like not even 25 years before Return of the Jedi. So then 5 years after Return of the Jedi, about 30 years from. The Clone Wars would have been about 30 years before this. So if the Mandalorian was like...
that kid looks about 10, so we're putting the age of, like, the Mandalorian, if it is him,
somewhere in his
which
30s, I would say. 35-ish.
I would say, like, late 30s to, like, mid 40s.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that kid... Well, maybe. I think that kid looks more like 7 or 8. And if it was, like, earlier in the Clone Wars, like, not at the very end of the Clone Wars... Well, the Clone Wars is only a couple years, right? So...
Yeah.
But if he was 8 and it's 30 years earlier, that's like 38, you know?
Yeah.
But
I mean, like
45, I think, no way.
Okay, but up to
40? No,
up to
45's too old.
To 45.
What's 45 minus 10? 35. There's no way it was 35 years before.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker's like 19 in A New Hope, right? That's 20 years after the Clone Wars. This is
geez.
like not 10 years after that. So how could you get to 45?
I don't know. That
Ryan,
kid.
you are the one who, like, the canon is so important.
Oh my
to you.
God,
Capital C. You're the guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why don't you know this? Because aren't the movies the primary text? Isn't that the only thing we should focus on? And we should know that inside and out, and that's all that matters in Star Wars are the saga films?
True. True facts. Hashtag true facts, yes.
So why don't you just know this off the top of your head?
Because now a
Did they
TV
not
show's
ask you this at Trivial
getting filtered.
Pursuit?
A TV show's getting filtered
What
into the
happened?
mix now.
Oh, okay.
So that's where the confusion comes in.
It's all very confusing. Liking good things. It's
I
really
think
hard.
he's in his mid-30s. I think that's
Okay.
where his age is.
Okay, late 30s. We'll
Fine,
settle on.
late 30s. Fine, he's in his late
Okay.
30s.
So that's interesting though. Like he's separated from his family during the Clone Wars, like by separatists. His planet's attacked by separatists or in battle with separatists. Or does he get rescued by separatists?
Well, I mean, it's a super battle droid that's trying to, like, kill his family. So...
Yeah. But then, like the door opens and that super battle droid's right there, and he obviously doesn't kill him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Is it like a Saw Gerrera, Jyn Erso type thing where he, like, the battle droid pulls him out and is like, man, this Republic sucks, and you should be a separatist with us, and then, like, the Republic turns into the Empire, and, like, that's why the Mandalorian is like, yuck, Empire, yuck, Republic.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sure. Could be. I mean, we know why he's like, yuck the Empire, because the Empire wiped out the Mandalorians, right? So that's why he's like, yuck them.
Yeah. But there's also a part, I'm just going to jump ahead.
But
I'm gonna keep this
you know
moving.
that, like, the relationship with the Mandalorians and the planet of Mandalore to the Republic and to the Empire and to everything is complicated, right?
It's a complicated relationship.
Yes.
It's complicated.
So he would be, like, not probably wanting to join up with any cause, or, like, Mandalorians in general would not be one and wanting to be very linked up to any cause, and the Mandalorians in the show clearly are, like, not wanting to.
Mm-hmm.
They want to just maintain their own little culture, and they don't seem to be engaged in any larger galactic struggle, at least at this point. So whether that's tied into his personal backstory or it's just part of, like, being a Mandalorian, I think it would make sense regardless, right?
Yeah. And there's the part where you know, after he delivers the asset and he's getting his nixed puck from Grief Karga, and Grief, and, you know, he's like, well, what are they going to do with that kid? Second time he asks it, and the second time he gets the answer, like, you're not supposed to ask that question. And then Grief is obviously not too concerned about it, and he says, you know, if it bothers you so much and you think they're doing something unethical, like, just go to the core planets and notify the Republic. And then the Mandalorian's like, that's a joke. Like, he has zero faith in the Republic, in the New Republic. And, like, there's your sequel trilogy tie-in right there. Like, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
But it also, like, kind of goes back to, like, his personal politics of, like, not really liking any of those proper government systems that have kind of come and gone in his lifetime, because he's seen it all.
Yeah, fair enough. Right on.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Other best part of this episode, double payoff when he's rescuing the child, and he's surrounded by four stormtroopers, and it pays off in two ways. First, he gets to use the new weapons, the whippersnappers or whatever they're called.
Oh yeah, the winged,
the whistlers,
whistling birds.
Whistling birds. He gets to use those, which is I texted you that it's like getting a new weapon in a Zelda game.
Yeah.
A new item in a Zelda game, and then you get to use it on the mid-boss. It was he did that, so that paid off. But then also the line from the first episode of The Mandalorian, when the stormtroopers are like, we have you outnumbered 4-1, and he's like, I like those odds.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Boom.
Okay. Very
Boom.
good. Yeah.
Best show ever made.
Yeah.
Right here. Mandalorian episode 3.
It's good. It's good. I mean, to me, I think the as we maybe wrap up our conversation about The Mandalorian here, what was the best thing about this episode is just how tense it was, and how, like, you know, the show, I think in a lot of ways is banking on a deep investment from the audience in the safety of Baby Yoda. And trust me, man, when I was watching this show, I was so nervous that something bad was going to happen to Baby Yoda. And I was talking to somebody at work about that, because like people stopped me in the hallway and asked me, what do you think about The Mandalorian? Or like, what about Baby Yoda? You know, like everybody, when you're like the Star Wars guy, then people stop you and want to talk about it, you know? And a lot of people are watching the show, which is great. But somebody stopped me and was like, well, you know, you know nothing bad can happen to Baby Yoda. You know nothing bad can happen to Baby Yoda. It's like, I know that here, but I don't know that here. Like, I don't know that in my emotions when I'm watching the show. Like, emotionally, I'm scared, you know? And yes, I'm can be kind of cynical or pragmatic or whatever about like how these stories are going to play out and stuff. But at the same time, I'm nervous for that baby. I don't want to see anything bad happen to that baby, you know? Just like when you were watching Halloween, I mean, you probably knew that they weren't going to show Michael Myers murdering a baby in a movie, but you're still nervous it's going to happen, right? It's scary. And Deborah Chow and the writers of this episode, and just you know, the whole thing, they were able to like build that tension in a really intense way, I think, throughout the show, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
So, Mando action sequence at the end was cool.
That's cool.
I thought
kind of already talked about that.
I thought the line where the Mandalorian was like, oh, I gotta get one of those rocket packs. I was like,
Yep. I was actually gonna plug that in. That's the 14 parsecs. That was like that moment.
Yeah, that I didn't love.
Yeah.
Especially since he's gonna get one. You know what I mean? But even if he wasn't, I wouldn't love it.
Dude.
It's just a little
when
cheesy.
When Mando gets a jetpack, I'm going to lose my mind.
Yeah. Also, very obvious, but still, I thought really well done and really good, was the visual storytelling with that like little metal ball on the...
I love that.
You know, because like little Baby Yoda is messing with it, and he's annoyed, and then he puts it back, and then like it's like when he looks at that little ball is what makes him say, I got to go save that baby. That's a creature with like, you know, individuality, and is worth saving because, you know, of this memory. And then at the end, he just straight up gives the ball to the baby, which is awesome, you know, to Baby Yoda. It's like, all right, I'm your daddy. I'll give you this little ball to play with. You know? So, yeah, it's really good. It's really good. and they can't really use words in this show, so it was an example of that. But of how do you tell a story when the Mando like refuses to really say anything ever? So I mean that component of it was really good. Just communicated a lot, and like I mean I definitely saw it coming as I was watching the show, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So well handled.
Perfection.
Where do you think it's going in episode 4?
I don't even want to speculate.
Okay. All right.
I just want to go.
I have no idea. So like I don't have really any speculation. I just know he's going to go to a different planet, and I know that he's going to be there's going to be a bunch of other bounty hunters after him now, which is cool.
Yeah.
So he'll be on the run.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's after him. The Herzogs after him. The remnants of the Empire are after him. The other bounty hunters are after him.
Well, I mean, that's really two factions, because Herzog is the remnant of the Empire. So it's like Herzog and the Stormtroopers, and then also Greef Karga and the bounty hunters,
Yeah.
So, but yes.
Well, that's everyone.
I know.
Maybe there's another Mudhorn who's like wanting to avenge his departed Mudhorn friend.
That could be. Yeah.
Maybe the Jawas got heartburn from that egg. And
Suga. All right, let's close out the show with a quick email here from our friend Mike Harris, Skymauler on Twitter. He emailed us and said, so we're coming up on a month from the Rise of Skywalker, and I wanted to ask you both how you're dealing with spoilers from here on out, Twitter blackouts, and closing your eyes at the hundreds of TV spots that are coming, or are you diving right in? He says, I waffled back and forth, tried to do a blind viewing of The Last Jedi, only to have someone ruin it for me in my DMs on Twitter 3 days from release, so I'm not sure if I want to deal with the stress of avoiding. Take care, and may the Force be with you. So, Ryan, what's your take on spoiler levels? We've talked about it a little bit, but...
Yeah. Trying to stick with just getting my information from the official sources and the websites and Twitter people that I trust. May have to mute a few people on Star Wars Twitter in the coming weeks, and then I'll do my usual probably 3 or 4 days before the film comes out, completely cutting off social media. And which is a great thing to do in general. To take time off. But yeah, I usually do it based around when the review embargo lifts, because I feel like that's when the floodgates burst, is when when reviews are out there, and it gets pretty easy to infer things. I don't like reading reviews of Star Wars movies going into them. So yeah, I think I'll probably just stick with the official stuff. Like I said, I'll watch TV spots one time. I'm not going super in depth with anything, and I'll probably read the prelude books. And then that's about it.
Yeah, similar. I will excitedly gobble up anything from official channels. So if Daisy and John Boyega and J.J. Abrams and those people are going to be on Good Morning America, I will watch those interviews. If they're going to show a scene from the movie on Good Morning America, I will watch that scene. If they're going to put out new TV spots, I will watch them. I will, read any press interviews, that kind of stuff. I'm into all of that. I will also go on a Twitter blackout probably the night of the premiere. So when the movie premieres, I will probably, which is probably maybe
it's
the
usually
Monday night.
The Monday. Yeah,
something like
it's the
that.
Monday.
Sometimes I think it's even been the Saturday before. I don't know. We'll see when it is. But whenever that happens, and that's before the review embargo, but whenever that happens, I will probably hop off of Twitter and just stay away. I'll know that I'll get a text message or two from Kevin or someone telling me what, different Star Wars people thought about the movie. I don't mind that. And that is a little bit, it's sort of treading the line, but there will be people like voice actors from like Sam Witwer, for instance, or Kyle Newman, or Kevin Smith, or whoever that'll be at the premiere, that'll be tweeting about it that night. Anthony Breznican, and I'll like to see, maybe a couple tweets from people, but usually they're curated by somebody else who's going to send them to me because I'll be off Twitter by then. So a little bit of that. Ryan, looks like by the look on your face, you might need to tell people not to send you that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't I'll take one picture of Kevin Smith walking out of the theater with like tears in his eyes. Like I'll take one of those, but nothing else.
Okay.
Like, I want to know that Kevin Smith cried.
Okay.
During the movie, but
I don't know that much about Kevin Smith anymore, but I feel like we know that without even. I think we know that, he knows that, everybody knows that before he even sees the movie, right? I mean,
oh yeah.
There's no universe that exists in which Kevin Smith comes out of the movie and he's like, yeah, that wasn't good, that sucked, right? I mean, that's not going to happen, is it?
I mean, if that does happen, I don't want to know.
Okay,
If Kevin Smith comes out of that movie dry-eyed, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Don't tell me.
Yeah, fair. So, and then as far as the movie reviews go too, like those are fun, but basically what I do, because I'll break down like the day before the movie or the day of the movie, and I'll look at the Rotten Tomatoes score, and I will probably I look at a couple headlines at least just to see kind of what people are saying. Like I don't want to read the reviews because I don't want to know why people liked it or didn't, but I want to know like how is it being received by critics and stuff. And you know what? It's always the same with Star Wars movies. It's like around 90-some%. You know what I mean? They're usually always pretty good overall. Like Force Awakens was really good overall. Last Jedi was really good overall. It's not going to tell me that much. Like knowing that The Last Jedi got really good reviews did not in any way like prepare me for that movie and like what it was going to be. If I read the reviews, then I think it would. So I'd like to see just a little bit of like temperature taking from like those movie critics, but I don't want to read the reviews.
See,
I work with Kevin, and Kevin will be reading those reviews at work that day, and it's telling me what he's seeing. So not telling me what they say, but like I'll know kind of what vibe people have about it.
I really think like it's an awesome thing to go into these movies not knowing what people think.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, because you get to like form like a super honest yeah, a super honest opinion like right out of the gate. And it's so pure and undiluted. Like I walked out of Force Awakens and I was like, that was like the best movie I've ever seen. And then I checked and it was like 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I was like, okay, yeah, people are with me.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think you're right, but at the same time, I think like The Force Awakens is a great example because that is what everybody felt for the first 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden people were like, oh, it's too much like the Raisin Mary Sue, and it's too much like this and whatever, blah blah blah. It's like I feel like by experience now, it's all positive right away, and then the complaints start to come out after the fact if there are significant complaints and stuff. But I don't know. I just can't imagine looking at Rotten Tomatoes or looking at headlines and seeing a bunch of like, it's about a C+. Like, it's not going to happen with Star Wars. Like, it isn't going to happen. The movie's going to be better than that, and people aren't going to say anything. Like, it's just not going to happen, I think. But I could be wrong. I don't know. Yeah. You even go back and look at the prequel reviews, and they're like all good right away. And then all of a sudden, everybody decides they don't like them after the fact. But I don't know. But we're definitely not seeking out spoilers. We're not going to be like looking for spoilers, assuming somebody's going to spoil it for us anyway. So we might as well just know. Clearly from our conversation here, neither one of us want to actually know plot details or like, anything significant. We just, we don't, we're a little bit, there's a little bit of variance between how much, the two of us want to know, but it's definitely well below significant plot points. Like neither of us want to know anything like that. So we'll be avoiding stuff and even jumping off of Twitter. In fact, Ryan, I was thinking about it today. I think we have maybe 3 episodes left before the movie comes out. I think 3 weekends until the movie comes out. So not too many more episodes of the show to go. until then. But we'll continue to talk about sort of like what we're hearing about the Rise of Skywalker from the press tours and that kind of stuff. I would assume next week we'll be talking about a scene from the Rise of Skywalker that we both watched from Good Morning America, as well as the next episode of The Mandalorian. And don't forget that Star Wars Resistance exists, but it's kind of easy to forget about that at this time.
I forgot.
Did you watch last week's episode?
I watched last week's. I forgot that there's going to be one today.
I have some thoughts about last week's episodes, but we're not going to talk about that now because I am ready to be done talking about stuff right now. I'm ready to be done with this episode. I'm sure if anyone's listening now, they're ready for us to be done as well. So we'll wrap it up now, but there's a lot going on, and we will definitely be back next week with another episode. If you want to email us like Mike did and let us know what you're thinking about the show and or about Star Wars related stuff, you can email us at blockaderunnerpodcast@gmail.com. I almost forgot that, but it's blockaderunnerpodcast@gmail.com. You can see all the episodes we've done and find any other content, Ryan, from us at blockaderunnerpodcast.com. The show is on Twitter at blockaderun. Ryan, you're on Twitter at like Canon King, I think. Is that what it is?
Yeah, bring back the EU.
No, what's your Twitter handle, Ryan?
The Snyder Cut.
Oh. Well, you're texting me about Batman versus Superman this morning, so I wouldn't be surprised.
I am. Yeah, it was a really bad take. All right, yeah.
Batman versus Superman? Yes, it is a really bad take.
It's a lot of things.
Right.
Brondorf, BRAWNDWARF, and I no longer want to discuss fandom ever again. So I will just be tweeting about, I don't know, what else is there besides fandom? What do normal people tweet about?
I don't know. Politics, cats,
politics.
Okay.
But that's like the worst form of fandom.
Yeah, true, and it really is a form of fandom for a lot of people as well.
It is.
All right, we got to wrap this show up. Thanks for watching.
Everything's terrible.
Everything's terrible. Yes. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with more Star Wars.